Like and subscribe in the next 5 seconds to receive a week of good luck, so like and subscribe. r/us credit. What was the most fucked up thing your ex did after you broke up? AWW 6400 comments. I'm going to get buried. Oh well, I'll post anyway, maybe someone will see it and enjoy the story. So to set the backdrop, first year in college, I had broken up with my first serious girlfriend and high school sweetheart very recently and was dealing with putting my life back together really. This story is not about her, though believe me that breakup deserves one. It is about the girl I met shortly after. She was a friend of a friend. Well, she was a recent friend of a recent friend. I'll skip the part where everything starts up because it's not about that. We spend the next 2 months hooking up and spending a lot of relationship time together. Since we both recently ended serious long-term relationships, neither of us bothered to define it in any way, but I can say we definitely treat it as something more than friends with benefits. At the end of this period I get a text from her essentially, "I'm not ready for a relationship blah blah." I responded, "That sucks because I was developing feelings for you, but if that's how you feel, that's how you feel." This was the extent of the exchange. I assure I'm not yada yadaing anything here. School starts up again a week later, and it gets back to me from my friends that she's dating someone now. I'm not stupid, I realize this is why we ended things. But hey, like I told her, if that's how she feels, that's fine. I start texting a neutral female friend about the situation. My friend asks if I want her to talk to her for me. I tell her word for word, no, don't bother her about me. If she doesn't want to be together, that's fine. This is where things get crazy. You're going to read this next part and go, he had to have left something out. There's no way she just does this. I promise you I told you 100% of the build up on my end. Now, as I mentioned at the start, just over 2 months ago I had broken up with my first serious girlfriend, and I was still kind of dealing with that, both physically with her, because she didn't seem to want to remove herself from my life for more than 2 months at a time, and just mentally in general. I wasn't going to class as much as I should for that first week, just feeling down. And it was hard to get myself out of bed some days. Somehow this gets back to the recent girl that I'm talking about. Now I don't remember the exact conversation that happens, this was almost 8 years ago, and the preceding events are what stuck with me more than the words said. All I know is she came to confront me about now showing up to classes. When I shrug off the questioning as to why, she starts to get mad. When I go back to what I was doing before she showed up, playing Xbox, and my friend was on the headset for this whole thing, which he still laughs about the event to this day, well, she gets furious. First she throws herself on the floor of my dorm room and literally starts flailing and kicking and yelling like a toddler. Not knowing how to approach that situation, I just continue ignoring it and playing on my 360. Obviously, wrong choice. She gets up, pulls my 360 off my dresser where it was, and starts swinging it at me. I managed to get her to stop that thanks to my roommate showing up at this point. He kind of stumbles in and more or less asks what the hell is going on. This turns her attention to him. She flips out at him and starts yelling at him. She then proceeds to chase him out of our dorm, down the hallway, and into the men's bathroom, where he uses the door to keep her out. I guess that ultimately calmed her down, because she comes stomping back, curses me out, and leaves. My roommate eventually returns. We laugh it off and move on. Until about a week later, campus security shows up at my door. They ask me to come with them, and they lead me to the dean's office. There he informs me that they're aware that I'm severely depressed and at a high risk for suicide. He admits he considered straight having me hospitalized, but instead decided just to have me watched and mandate counseling for me twice a week. It didn't matter what I had to say at this point. The dean's mind was made up. So I took it and started going to counseling twice a week with one of the college psychiatrists. I explained to the psychiatrist the whole situation, that I'm of no danger to myself, and I don't know why I'm really there. Ultimately though, I do make the best of it and had some great conversations with the psych about my high school ex and other issues completely unrelated to the crazy college girl. Now though, I literally could not walk out of my dorm building without campus security walking up to me and
I'm so
asking me
fast.
if
What
I was
about?
alright. One time I still remember, I stepped outside just to make a phone call with my mom outside of everyone's earshot, and while I'm on the phone with my mom they come up and start questioning me. That became my life at the college. Now my roommate, he was never the sharpest tool in the shed. We were roommates, but we weren't friends too, so he didn't truly know what to make of the whole situation. Finally one morning I wake up, and my roommate is sitting there like he always is, notices and turns to me and asks, "Hey, did you try and contact girl earlier today?" And I told him the truth, that I haven't attempted to contact her for almost 3 weeks now. He informs me that he asked because she just called him to yell at him and tell him to stop me from constantly trying to contact her. This is where the whole background workings are now revealed to me. He admits that he's been involved with talks between her and the dean almost since the beginning. He didn't really know what to believe, but basically, she convinced the dean that I was depressed and suicidal, and now she was convincing the dean that I was constantly trying to contact her, and they were now discussing filing a restraining order against me. This pissed me off. I had been treated like shit by the college for the past 3 weeks because of some crazy girl. I immediately go down to the dean's office, insist on a meeting, and I'm eventually given one. I tell him she's been harassing me, that she is now harassing my friends, that I have not tried to contact her, and I have the phone records to prove it. The dean brushes me off, tells me that they have my phone number on file, so there's no need for proof, and sends me on my way. I head back to my dorm and inform my roommate that he needs to talk to the dean on my behalf, because the dean basically blew me off. I remind my roommate of the time she literally chased him into the bathroom, and he had to lock himself in. I tell him that the only person that even offered to talk to her for me, I told in no uncertain terms not to. I eventually had him call her, and she confirmed my story. Finally this convinced him to go talk to the dean on my behalf. This where the story winds down. After that I don't hear from her or the dean again. Campus security stops bothering me. I continue going to the therapy, partially because I was never told I didn't have to, partially
I'm
because I
trying to
actually enjoyed having someone
I'm
to
using
just
body
rant
slams like to
life's
try to
problems to
paralyze
twice a
this,
week.
but
Finally the second
seems
the
not to
semester
work.
ended I left that
And that
college
moved.
never to return. When I was about 15 I went out with a girl, same age, from a different school. The relationship was fucked the whole time, very toxic person. Anyway I tried breaking it off multiple times, and I was always faced with the old "well I'll just kill myself then." She used to be a cutter before we got together, so part of me thought she probably would try. Not being something I wanted on my conscience I stayed with her for a while. After getting really fed up with the relationship I broke it off for realsies, and she didn't take it too lightly, told pretty much her whole school that I got her pregnant. That made its way to my school, which made its way to my family. This was crazy. We
Wow.
hadn't had sex at all and everyone believed her over me.
That's
She
fucking
even
ridiculous.
tried playing this out for as long as possible,
I
even
wasted a
going
whole
as
super
far as
full-
giving herself a baby bump. She was absolutely insane. Edit, I didn't really expect to wake up to this sort of response, but hopefully this clears up some of the questions.
Kinda weird how no one's
I
attacking this
confronted
video.
her at her school when she had a bump. I don't know how the hell she'd done it, but her little group of friends carried that lie so hard, and I caught shit for a few months, as this particular GF was not overly attractive
You're
or
supposed to
even a
pick a
nice
head.
person. I was told this by a few people throughout our relationship. I was never really the kind of guy to chase girls and try to get laid. I was always looking for a friend, long-term relationship style. My
She could
parents
definitely
raised
take
me
it.
very well to understand what people go through and to look for the person who might be underneath the surface. Very good advice. Although this person was Satan wrapped up in a slightly damaged girl's body. In the end my parents obviously took my side, but them confronting me about teenage pregnancy at the age of 15 was frightening. They thought I was just trying to cover it up as I didn't go to them with the problem first. I ended up calling the girl's mum
I
and
might
sat
attempt to catch this thing
down and
now
had a conversation
because
with
it was
her.
doing too
I'm
much.
not sure what she said to her crazy daughter, but it seemed to work. She and her mum must have tried a little damage control as suddenly everyone stopped believing the lie. Other than the meeting with her mum, I had nothing to do with them as soon as the pregnancy rumor was spread, so I don't know really what happened. I just tried to forget the whole thing and it eventually went away. My closest ally in this whole thing was actually my school homeroom teacher. He was very empathetic and helped me deal with the issue of her threatening suicide as well as the whole pregnancy. He Daryl MVP. She took all my shower stuff while I was at work. Curtain, rod, all that stuff, and the toilet bowl scrubber. She took all that. I came home and said okay, not letting her take more of my stuff that's actually important. So I changed the locks. Went to work that night. She calls and says she needs in the apartment to get her things. I tell her now, not without me there. I don't want you taking my stuff. She says she'll call the cops, and I tell her to go ahead. Cops show up at my work and ask what's going on. I show them my lease with her name not on it, and they say okay, we'll have her come back tomorrow. Call us when she shows up. She comes the next day and tells me she's taking my bed. $700. I tell her no, she didn't pay for it, and I have my credit statement printed ready to show the cop. She tries arguing she's taking the bed. Cop says look, you're not taking it. If you think you deserve it, take him to court. Tries arguing with the cop then. Cop says did you not hear me right? Take him to court. Didn't hear back from her about it. Edit for those wondering. I had a copy of the lease at work, because a week or so before I made a copy of it to show my ex that she wasn't on it. I was under the assumption that, because she wasn't on the lease, I'd be able to have her removed for trespassing. If she tried anything crazy again, she had started getting violent towards the end. I wasn't aware of the whole establishing residency thing some people are mentioning. That's why I had the lease with me. I printed my statements, because I knew the next day, when she came back, if she tried to take any of my high-dollar items I had bought, I could show the cop, and not have to bother losing my things then having to go to court for them. Thanks for all the replies everyone. I've enjoyed everyone else's stories. I think we've all learned that lesson, to not put our dicks in crazy, eh? My time to shine. I dated a woman for 3 years. Let's call her Demanda. We lived together, grew apart. I thought the breakup went fairly smoothly. I agreed to pay for the apartment for the remainder of the lease, about a month and a half, and I went to stay with my bandmates. I came back a few days later to grab some of my things and the whole apartment was wrecked. She ripped all of the pages out of my textbooks, burned them in a trash can, and scattered the ashes all over the couch. All of my DVDs were shattered and placed neatly back inside their cases, and on the shelf. She wrote vulgarities all over my paintings, slashed them, emptied my paint tubes on the floor, and cut the bristles off of my brushes. She cut the strings on my friend's guitar and scratched cheater, liar, pussy, dick on the body. I didn't cheat or lie. The others are up for debate. She took a hammer to my gaming PC, the fat grey Gamma Boy I've had since I was 8, my Northeast and SNES, all of my toys, some flower pots that once housed some really nice shrubberies, and both of my cameras. My comic book collection was ripped to shreds. My clothes were cut into ribbons. My N64 and all of the games were missing, likely pawned. She smashed my glass desk. The cats went unfed, and she left a turd in the toilet. The cops came and told me that there was nothing they could do for me, because we had lived together for so long. They were her things too, and she was certainly allowed to destroy her own property. The landlord was next. He changed the locks and struck her name off of the lease. All of her things were already moved out, so we both assumed she wasn't coming back. My brother came over the next day to help me move the rest of my
taking
things.
forever.
Bed, furniture, washer/dryer.
It should start at the beginning of the
We were
game.
nearly done when Demanda shows back up screaming obscenities. She put a few dents in my brother's truck, while telling him how much of a cunt my mother is for not aborting us. Then, she tried to get inside, to get some more of her things, nothing she owned. wasn't there anymore, and further lost it when her key didn't work. She punched me in the face and started hitting me with her incredibly dense purse. My brother called the cops and let her know that they were on the way. Cops arrived. She was gone. Their immediate reaction to the domestic dispute call was that I was the bad guy, so I ended up in cuffs while they looked for Demanda. After they realized that my eye was swollen shut and Demanda was nowhere to be seen, they started listening to my brother and I. He showed them the dents in his truck. I showed them my still wrecked apartment. One of them got a good laugh out of the situation. They took pictures and a statement and left. I sported a black eye at work and class for the next week or so. Fast forward a couple of weeks later. It's the last day of my lease. I am sleeping on a mat on the floor. The only things left in my apartment are a few lamps, a TV, a microwave, a backpack full of some clothes I bought over the last few weeks, and my cats. It's 2 in the morning when I start getting drunk and texts from Demanda. I love you. Let's get back together. The usual. I ignore all of them and try to get some sleep. At 3, I get a knock on the door. Hey, open up. This is my apartment too. I tell her to fuck off. Then I hear a much deeper voice. Open the fucking door, or I'll kick it in. Before I get a chance to respond, the dude is already trying to kick in my door. I grab my backpack and jet out the back. I called the cops as I left, but I didn't stick around to see what happened. When I returned the next day, there's a few giant footprints in the front door. It's one of those big steel ones, and the door frame is broken. She has smashed all of my lamps and the TV, pissed on my pillow and mat, dumped all of my food out on the floor, spread kitty litter throughout the apartment, and smeared cat shit on the walls. She also let out, or stole all of the cats. I got a call from her mother a few days later pleading with me to not press charges. I told her it was out of my hands. The cops had taken pictures and Amanda was going to be arrested and charged, whether or not I wanted it to happen. I did. Last I heard, she spent a month in jail, paid a $5,000 fine, and had to sit through anger management classes for 6 months. Good riddance. Tried to kill himself. We were together for 5 years, engaged for 3. Nothing like sitting at work on your second day when you get a phone call from the state hospital saying they have your fiancé. We had been split up for 2 months because he was crazy abusive and also just plain crazy. I asked to be excused from work, which they were surprisingly okay with. Hopped across town to find him in the locked ward. I walked in and asked what he did, seeing as he seemed to be physically unharmed. Turns out he was caught by security trying to jump off a building. He said that if I didn't get back with him, that there was no point in living. I told him that there was no chance I was marrying him, but I'd always be there as a support. I called his mother who lived interstate and demanded she come and collect him. As crazy as he was, he didn't belong in a place like that, with people who were so far gone they were more disorder than person. They would only release him into the care of someone else, and I told him it wasn't going to be me, and that was the end of it. The last time I saw him was just a few hours before his flight. He asked for just a few hours of normal. So we cooked dinner, talked about mundane shit, went to volleyball together with our friends, and then at the end of our game she stood at the doorway to collect him. And he left. I guess you could say the worst thing he did wasn't trying to emotionally manipulate me. It was giving me a taste of what could have been, allowing me to feel something, right before he left my life. Make no mistake, I'm far better off out of the relationship. I'm borderline unrecognizable as being the same person. But that departure ruined me for a long time. Never have one last fling. It's better to end with bitterness on your tongue than deal with months of what ifs and buts. I'm late, but story time. We had broken up a week before Christmas. New Year's comes around. I'm at a party drunk, and she's blowing up my phone. I have no idea at the time. A friend approaches me, tells me she's calling him too. I step outside, see I have about 30 missed calls, and 7 voicemails, 2 from her, 5 from her mother. I hear all of them to get the deets. Apparently a close friend of hers died. A friend I had never heard her mention. Her mother's voicemails were telling me that if I really cared about her I'd be there for her. I'm an asshole. All that jazz. So I think I'll bite. I'm not an asshole. I have a friend take me over there. Call a friend's mom on the way. Let her know that I'll be going to my ex's house. We get there. Her and her mother are outside. I'm squatted with 3 friends. She's sobbing. I ask if she'd like to walk around and talk about it. She talks about the deceased for a whole 2 minutes and then changes the subject to us 30 minutes of talking about us. We get back to her house with everyone around. I tell her that I came to support her. I don't want to get back with her. She goes off on a tantrum, screaming at the top of her lungs. A neighbor even came out to make sure no one was getting killed. She keeps screaming at me asking how I can do this to her. Lies about being pregnant. I always wear a helmet. No chance. I call her out on that. She throws her phone across the road, or throw of a lifetime. Unfortunately there were no scouts for the NFL. She's on the floor hitting herself. Her mother is screaming at me. I decide I should leave before it gets worse. I'm honestly scared.
I thought he was gonna attack her or
go
something.
home,
Scared.
talk to my parents. We change the codes to the house. My car gets egged every day for a whole month. A whole damn month. Save maybe 3 days 5 years later, I see a familiar couple in front of me as I'm driving. Brake checks the shit out of me to the point that I have to veer off the road. Car speeds up to a red light. I'm pissed so I pull up to the car once I get off the grass. Lo and behold, her mother. Where do I start? My ex 10 years ago was an abusive alcoholic. I had enough of her false promises and constant crap that I just walked out. In the next few months she would phone my house, drunk, gloating about who she's fucked. Show up to my parents, drunk, demanding to talk to me. Various times she was verbally abusive to my mother, who basically told her to fuck off before I called the cops. Threatened to lie to police that I sexually abused her son. Threatened to tell police that bruises on her body from being drunk all the time and falling over a lot was from me. Ironically, she was the one who beat me. Told my parents 5 months after I left her that she was 2 months pregnant and it had to be mine. Yeah, okay. Threatened to get her son's alcoholic junkie dad to do you in for not answering her calls. Called my boss various times at work, demanding I be fired for being abusive to her at my workplace supermarket. He laughed at her and told her finally she was banned from the shop for harassing his staff. Probably more, but thinking about it makes me feel like crap. Edit. The thing that annoyed me more using her son against me. She was an incredibly shit parent and knew I cared a lot about him. He was actually taken into custody by her parents as she could not care for him at all. I recall once, I phoned her house. The son, who was probably 5 at the time, answered crying his eyes out that mommy was drunk again, and he had had no food all day. I promptly went down there with my dad, grabbed the kid, fed him and took him to his grandparents' house. I feel sorry for the kid. Both parents were useless wastes of space and unfortunately both died a few years ago. His mum, my ex, had epilepsy. Never took her meds. OBD always heavily drinking. Drowned in the bath. His dad died of drug overdose. Okay, he's probably better off without either. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, but it's true. But losing both parents because of their own selfishness must completely suck. I've seen his gran a few times and always ask how he's getting on. Sorry, this is completely getting away from the main topic, but goes to show how utterly horrible some people are. We were living together, and we decided to buy another much needed car together. The car dealer gave me the car, and asked me to get her signature to finalize the deal. He trusted us completely, and stipulated just bring the paperwork back to him the next morning. Great. I bought a bottle of champagne that day, and decided to get her signature ASAP. Couldn't find her till the next morning at her mother's house. Her mother was so happy to meet me at the door, and tell me her daughter has been seeing somebody else for weeks at this house. I was floored. I had no idea, didn't even suspect anything like that could occur. I confronted her, and she was like so cold and unresponsive to my questions about this new endeavor with another man. Actually, I was getting visibly upset and was
Oh my
irate
god.
because of her lack of caring and answering me that I was told to leave. I left the car papers and champagne at her mother's house. I turned the new car back to the dealer and told him I had inadvertently left the paperwork at her mother's house. He said don't worry about it, because if the deal is off the papers weren't needed. Well, I kept tabs on her and found out who she was with, a school friend. In time, my relationship and my love for her faded away. 2 years later, she comes back to me one night with the same car papers and the same bottle of champagne. She opened the champagne and started drinking it by herself. She was wanting to get back together. I was like, what? She had that same look on her face, cold and unresponsive, and she had this notion it was just a few days ago, not 2 years ago, we had a misunderstanding or a small fight. To her, time didn't move, and it was a only couple's fight to her, not a girlfriend having sex with another guy fight. She was actually telling me she was moving back in with me starting tomorrow without asking my permission. The girl was a loon. When I told her this wasn't a few days ago, this was 2 years ago, she stared into space. That cuckoo look. She couldn't understand why I wouldn't take her back. This is what we wanted, isn't it? To be together? I told her that was my sentiment 2 years ago, and I don't have those feelings for her anymore. She looked at me like I was crazy and told me it was only days ago she was with this other guy. Point she wouldn't leave, so I called her mother up to come pick her insane daughter, and that was that. She was a lunatic. I had a bad breakup with a girl who was trying on different religious affiliations like a shopper tries on pants. Throughout most of the lengthy breakup process, she would show up at my door demanding to talk, with her beefy new boyfriend behind her looking like he was ready for action, or calling me to tell me how her new very religious boyfriend was giving her a proper rodding. Found out she'd been doing the house visits, even when I wasn't home, quietly taking things each trip, which got me even more wary. So I hatched a plan. Early in our relationship, we had done some quasi-religious ceremony, she said.
These jump scares, oh my god.
Union, not marriage, just union, she said, involving a big pillar candle we bought from a thrift store. I found the candle and carved all sorts of mysterious symbols into it and burned it for a couple of hours. I left it on the back porch on a plate next to a small fake brass dagger that was much more a decorative item than a weapon. It wouldn't done a shitty job cutting butter or poking holes in paper. She called me the next day, growing more and more hysterical as I openly pretended to play dumb, while she uttered dire warnings about dealing powers I don't understand. What did you do? You don't know what you're doing. Spells are beyond you. You'll get us both killed or worse, etc., etc. I revealed nothing and everything, telling her I didn't know what she was talking about in a tone of voice that clearly said that I did. After she hung up, things were quiet for about a month. She then showed up one night, alone, apologized and politely asked that we talk about things, which we did, and there were revelations for her in the understanding department which eventually led to her finally leaving me alone and going her own way. On my birthday, a few months after our breakup, she called me and wanted to see me. I was having a very difficult time with the breakup and was genuinely extremely happy to hear from her, so I said sure, come on over. So she came over, we drank, talked, and eventually had sex. Afterwards, she wanted me to walk her home as I usually did. As we were walking up the alley behind her street, this was our usual route that we took to get to her place from mine. She said, hey, I have a birthday present for you. Close your eyes and put out your hand. So I did, and suddenly I was on the ground. When I opened my eyes, I saw her looking at me with complete hatred, and she started swinging at me like her life depended on it. She must have hit me in the face at least 4 to 5 times before I realized what was happening. I was in complete shock. Then I looked down the alley and saw a bunch of people coming out of shadows and running towards me. Long story short, her coming over and having drinks, smiling and laughing with me, and even having sex with me was just an act to get me to that spot where she had prepared an ambush with about 8 people to kick my ass. She had told them all that I would beat her regularly, slept with her friends, and raped her on more than one occasion. and all of it was completely untrue. I managed to get away before the other guys caught up with me. Luckily, I still have absolutely no idea why that happened. We broke up because she had been cheating on me with several different guys, some of whom had come to me to tell me what was going on. Edit. But wait, there's more. A few weeks after that incident, I went to a concert with a few friends. She was there. Somehow I managed to get past what had happened and be civil with her. Right near the end of the show, a guy came up and was like, "Hey, you're Necrosis 13. We'll see you outside after the show's over." I called up a friend to come pick me up, and as he pulled up with his van, I ran outside to try to jump in. Got intercepted halfway, thrown to the ground, and stomped by at least 2 people. All I saw was the bottom of people's shoes as they were hitting my face. Oh, yeah. And a couple of weeks later, she
I keep
blew
trying to,
my
like,
brother in front of a
fix
bunch
this
of
off.
mutual friends in a park. And finally, tried to kill herself and told investigators that it was because I raped her. I was questioned by social workers once, and I guess they believed me because I never heard from them again. She later spent 3 months on suicide watch in the hospital. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe. How have you made a rude person's day worse? I was working as a manager in a big nightclub about a year ago. I don't wear a uniform, but have a radio and run the security team. The venue has a great smoking section that looks out onto the street. One night the venue was packed, so I did my usual roam making sure that there were no problems. However, it was too packed to walk through the smoking section, so I walked down the street instead, but could still very easily see into the smoking section. One guy stares me down, then calls me over, and starts swearing at me for no reason and telling me that pieces of crap like you could never even get into a venue like this. He obviously had no idea I was the manager. However, I didn't want to have security get into a fight inside with him. The guy kept telling me he would punch me out, etc., and was clearly trying to look macho to impress someone. So I agreed and told him to come and meet me outside and he could even have a free swing. He puts his drink down, takes off his jacket and storms outside. Once he walked outside, I walked back inside and told security not to let him back in. The look on his face when he realized I ran the place was priceless. And then the realization that he couldn't get back into the club was amazing.
I should have
It was
healed
the easiest and most
Ursa
fun
Rain.
removal I have ever done. Russell Crowe is such a weird guy.
I think would be good.
I'm a manager at a grocery store, so I get awesomely rude customers on a daily. Every Wednesday is senior discount day. You have to be 55-60 to qualify for the discount. Needless to say, Wednesdays are tense. Lots of seniors, and lots of other people who don't want to deal with the seniors. I don't generally mind the old folks. Most of them are pretty cool and have some interesting stories and cute jokes. This Wednesday there was one particular customer who was being a huge pain in the butt from the moment she walked in. She was tall, blonde, high heels, very made up, and dressed to the nines. She was probably late 30s to early 40s. She came storming up to customer service. "There are no parking spots. This is ridiculous. I'm going to request to corporate that you expand your parking lot, since you don't seem to have the initiative to request that yourself." Off to a great start, lady. She comes storming back up about 45 minutes later. I am in a huge hurry, and every line has someone
If this
in it.
doesn't catch
I
this
need
game
to
as
check out
hacks.
here. We had 3 lines open, and each one had one single customer. 1. I say no problem, but I'll get you at a checkout. You have too many items to get here. She
But
has
why?
a huge hissy fit. I don't have time for this. Let's go. As I'm checking her out, it is constant bitching. You only have one brand of makeup? That is ridiculous. I only wear MAC, but I was going to settle for Revlon, but you don't even have that. Now I have to make a whole separate trip. Please don't put my bread on top of my eggs. The eggs could roll over and crush the bread. Please bag my avocados separately. I need to use those for a face mask tonight. They need to be perfect. I have a photo session for work tomorrow. I'm in a magazine. She was unbelievable. Finally, at the end, I had enough. As she's about to pay, I say, "Don't forget today is senior discount day. You get 5% off." She just stared at me. What? I smiled broadly. Every Wednesday, Senior citizens get
I'm gonna buy some more
5%
Ultra
off their
Balls
bill.
because I know
I'll
there's
go
like a
ahead and
ton
take
of
it off. You are
battle Pokemon.
55-60. Right, she is staring at me. Debit card in hand. Cheeks getting red. I lose my smile slowly and say, oh, you don't qualify? Sorry about that. Maybe next year. Thanks for your honesty. I haven't seen her in the store since. I used to work for the Department of Motor Vehicles and the one I worked at had pretty limited parking. Surprise. I had left for lunch, came back and was having a hard time finding a place to park. I finally found a spot, so I drove up to it and put my signal on showing that I was waiting for it. People, in my experience, usually respect this and continue on. Not this time. Just as the car was backing out, after I had waited a few minutes, a car came from the opposite side of the lot, made eye contact with me and then shot right into the parking space. I was so mad because now I would be late after looking for a new spot. As I drove past the woman that had taken the spot, I just shook my head and she responded by shrugging her shoulders, smiling, mouthing the words, "Oh well" to me, and then ran her finger from her eye down her cheek as if to mock me crying about it. I continued into work, got in trouble for being late, but had actually forgotten about the incident until whose number gets called to my station. But Miss Spot Stealer herself, the look on her face was priceless. Keep in mind that I'm not your average DMV worker. I understand that stuff happens and waive penalties all the time and treat my customers with respect because I believe that what goes around comes around, and I know how crappy it is to wait at the DMV all day. I'm usually so nice about getting penalties taken off of people's accounts that I get in trouble for it at times. So, I greet Spot Stealer as nice as I would anyone else. In fact, it may have been nicer than I normally would be. She may have thought I didn't recognize her. Her registration is far past due, with hundreds due in penalties. I let her tell me her whole sob story, then finally tell her that she owes in full because she was aware of her due date. He argues it a little until, out of sight from my manager, I mouth the words, "Oh well," and drag my finger from my eye to my cheek, mocking her tears. At that point she puts her hair down and proceeds to take out her card and pay the full amount because yes, we do take debit cards. What goes around, comes around. When I was working a crappy job in my younger days, a customer was upset that he had to wait in line like everyone else before being able to make his purchase. He actually said, "Do you know who I am? I own hotels." To which I replied, "Well sir, I'm sorry, but this isn't Monopoly, this is Krispy Kreme." He was not pleased. I was sitting in my car making some photos with my new smartphone while using different settings. Then there was this woman who just stood at an one-way street with only one lane. So she stands there for like 10 seconds doing nothing. And I thought this is very unusual, so I started to make a video. Another driver comes and honks. Shen then proceeds to reverse and hit the car of the other guy with her big BMW. 4 guys jumped out of the BMW and start yelling at the guy. You have to know, in Germany always the one who hits another car from behind will be blamed if he can prove that it wasn't his fault. So we have a classic insurance fraud. The poor guy at the back was really worried cause he knew he couldn't prove it. I just sit there in my car and waited for the police. Then I go outside and the police started to get the stories. Of course there were 4 against 1 guys. I just stood there and listened the woman complaining about who this idiot hits her from behind and her brand new car is now damaged. After the police took the statement from both sides and even take my statement, they said there is no chance that 2 versus 4 could prove that he didn't do it. 2 of the guys at the BMW said they didn't know the girl and were pedestrians who saw it. That would increase the credibility. So they made all false statements to the police, and exactly that's the thing I wanted to happen. I then told the police, "Oh wait, there is just one thing," like Columbo style, and said that I got a video of what happened. I showed them to the police and the women and the drivers just stand there with mouth open. You could not only see how she hits his car but also that the pedestrians were with the women in the car. The guy then hugs me and we became good friends. Turns out he lives near me and we spend the evening drinking and gaming. SRY for bad English, I am German. Beautiful. Our Justice Porn would love this story. I'm in a massive line at a store. I'm next in line, but the person in front of me has a shitload of stuff. A helpful clerk sees the mess and opens another aisle saying, "I can help the next customer." Well, that's me. However, the checkout counter has 2 sides, a right and a left. It is set up for people to come to the right side. but the left can be used as well. As I am stepping over to her counter, this butthole from the very end of my line is sprinting to her counter, pushing people, with his partner in tow. He arrives right before me. They have a mountain of items in their cart which he starts throwing on the checkout counter. I am standing there on the other side with my one item, burning with rage. Checkout girl waits until he stacks all of his crap on the counter, looks at me, looks at him, and says to him, "I'm sorry sir, you're on the wrong side. You'll have to go to the end of the line," which is now massive. I put on my biggest grin, made eye contact with him as long as possible, and loudly told the clerk how awesome she was. Just the other day I was at a Chinese buffet and the 3 people in the booth next to me were questioning the waitress. She appeared to be Asian Hispanic, about voting for the president and who she planned to vote for. She had trouble understanding them and communicating that she could not vote. They immediately began taunting her that she shouldn't be here if she couldn't vote, that she didn't even know who the president of the United States is, and then took a picture and said they would post it on Facebook. I later found out the waitress was on a school visa and couldn't vote but was unable to convey that to them. After the waitress walked off, one of the girls at the table, the one who took the pic, looked up and asked me where I worked because I looked familiar. When I replied the local university in the social work department, she commented that she had recently been in my office to apply to our program. To which I replied, "Yes, I remember you and I'm also on the admissions committee," followed with a wink. The color drained from her face and she knew she was screwed. Calm as a bee. TLDR. I provided unsolicited marriage counseling services to a dickhead. I worked at a hotel several years ago and had to deal with insufferable pricks about a dozen times a day. Hotel stories about Billy Mays watching Granny P, a person that threw hot coffee in my face, a person that spit on me, and a crazy lady that slapped me are in my comment history. The best most evil revenge I ever got was on a guy that stayed with us 4 days a week for the entire 5 years I worked at the hotel. The big utility company in our area was having financial issues and he was the leader of the auditing team that was sent in to straighten it out. Anyway, I would interact with the guy at least a few times every day I worked, and he was always very rude and condescending. As an example, one of his co-workers would ask me for a local restaurant recommendation and he would chime in with "yeah," because minimum wage workers are known for their taste in fine dining. If someone asked me something personal, he would say something like ask him what life choices he made to be here, plunging toilets and writing down my preferred wake up call time. Maybe he can share his wisdom so we all avoid his fate. Stuff like that. He was just a jackass to everyone on the hotel staff, and was always very demanding. Since I saw him every day, I noticed that he had developed a relationship with one of the younger women on his auditing team. I saw their romance blossom from flirting to full-on groping and grinding in the hotel lobby. One day he had just finished delivering one of his delightfully crappy bon mots to me, and I was fuming. Then he screamed at one of my co-workers because she had a Filipino accent and he said he only wanted his room cleaned by white Americans. I vowed revenge. His wife called in to speak to him later that night, like she usually did, and I said, "Oh, I think he's sleeping in Ms.'s room tonight. One moment, please." And then I connected his wife to her room. His wife must not have told him what I had said, because he didn't try to get me fired. They got a divorce. They didn't have kids, but according to another guy on the auditing team, his wife got the house and custody of their dog. He stopped staying with us shortly after the phone call. I was riding my bike to work one day and when crossing a street, in the legal zone with a walk sign, a woman ran me over. She drove through the crosswalk looking to turn right and ran right into me. She stopped after I got bumped hard enough by her fender to take a spill and have some bruising all down my side. She gave me an exasperated, "my bad" wave and continued to talk on her cell phone, ignoring me as I picked myself and my bike up. I walked right up to her open window, grabbed her cell phone from her ear, and chucked it into a nearby parking lot as hard as I could. I swear that was the farthest I have thrown anything in my life. She gaped at me in shock as I struggled back onto my bike and slowly rode off, fuming yet victorious. Then a half-mile farther on my trek I got attacked by a goose. Not my best day. TLDR. Woman hit me with her car. Got revenge. Got attacked by goose. Those who feel that riding a bike in a crosswalk is not legal are correct. In this particular instance it was not a sidewalk but a designated bike path. They had a normal walk signal at an intersection, but I believe it was still acceptable to ride across as it was a bike-specific path. I could be wrong though. Twist, she was talking to the goose. Went to go get my exhaust fixed. No big deal, pothole poked a hole in it. When I went to go pick up the car a couple hours later, I am treated to a woman screaming at the guy behind the counter. She's positively foaming because she has been waiting nearly 30 minutes for her car to be fixed. She even goes so far as to call the guy an insignificant lazy immigrant. Guy looks at her, looks at me, throws me my keys, here you go, your magnum's ready, no charge. Looks her directly in the eyes. Looks like it's going to be more expensive than we originally thought. Would you like us to call you a cab? I returned shortly afterwards with pizza for the shop. TLDR. Frick B. Get pizza. He's a hero. You're a hero. Fantastic. I watched a lazy shopper park their grocery cart right behind another person's car instead of putting it in the cart return. I got out of my car, ran up and moved the cart and put it behind her car. I then ran off and watched her have to get back out of her car since she couldn't back out, and then finally proceed to put up her cart the right way. I felt like a champion of the people. I was at a Walmart and a lady got in her car, rolled down her window and started throwing papers out. I walked up to her car and picked up the paper and put it under her windshield wiper and walked away as I was riddled with curses. When people are rude to me at the drive-thru, I bend their straw so it gets a crack in it. So later on, about halfway through their drink, their straw stops working. HA. Guy got out of his car to express some road rage to me. I just got out of my truck, walked past him, pushed the lock button on his door, closed it, walked past him again, his mouth hanging open this time, got back in my truck and drove off. He seemed to be
When you
frozen
get paranoid and you
confusion.
think you're not
Nice.
gonna lose your
To the
save
point
file.
and total butthole thing to do. +1 for you, D. I volunteer at my university. Safe walks and all that jazz. We are required to report suspicious and illegal activity. Witnessed a woman driving a Mercedes-Benz across a lawn to bypass the parking gate, tearing up this gorgeous lawn. Being an ex-landscaper, and mad at some rich bee being too cheap for parking. I am not amused, so we reported it to the parking authority. They show up while the chick is still getting crap out of her trunk, box her in, and start writing a ticket. She ended up driving away, over a curb, peeling her bumper off in the process. Made me kinda happy inside. At the end of a long commute home, after a hard week, I went to a Miller's Cookies store just before closing time. As I walked up to the counter, not 5 feet from it, some guy ran from behind me and tried to cut in front of me. The girl working there insisted I was first. Thank you. Outraged at what that guy tried to do, and noticing there was not much cookies left, I said, "Hi, I'll take absolutely everything you have." Cost me close to $60, but it was so worth it. I work in customer service and have no shortage of butthole customers. I often find that a nice big smile and a "have a nice day" at the end of an insulting customer's rant makes them angrier than any insult I could have thrown back at them. I work in local theater, and we have a lot of rude, awful women who are part of local ballet schools come through our venue who are the mothers of the dancers. Once this woman rang up wanting seats to an almost sold out ballet performance that had been on sale for 4 months the day before the show, and did nothing but abuse me for 5 minutes because she left buying them too late. Whined about how she shouldn't have to pay for her kids, whined that we should get a bigger venue, it seats just under 500, then put me on hold while she rang 3 of her relatives to see if they wanted seats too. She was positively awful. The seats I was about to sell her were the only ones in the theater left, and they were good seats. While I'm on hold, a grandma of one of the ballerinas comes to the desk and asks if we have any seats left, as she'd been in hospital and couldn't buy them earlier, but said she'd understand if we were booked out. I put the phone with the on-hold music down and sold this old lady the last seats for the show, and gave her an invite to our next year's dance season for her granddaughter and herself, so she'd know exactly when all the important dates were coming. She thanked me over and over, and she's now one of our regulars and brings her grandkids to our shows. 2 minutes after the old lady leaves, the bee on the other end finally takes me off hold and says she wants the remaining seats that we have left. I tell her, "Sorry, we've just sold out while you had me on hold, I'm afraid. Better luck next year. Anything else I can help you with?" She was choking with rage on the other end of the phone. It was fantastic. I really like this one. You're not actually doing anything mean. Was in theater quite a
I
few
could have
years
sworn
back.
that I
Some
aimed for
action
the
flick.
toolkit.
I
Okay.
think Jean-Claude Van Damme, and there were two 16-year-old or so kids in front of me who were, in turn, behind a group of smaller kids, say 12 or so. I was alone. The wife hates action movies. I quickly noticed that the two older kids were freaking with the younger ones, kicking their seat backs, throwing popcorn at them, flicking spit at them, the works. The theater was crowded so the little guys couldn't move. Finally one of the Doucher teens leans forward and, I think, flicked one kid's ear. When the little kid turned around to glare, flicking Doucher teen says, "You got a problem with that, shithead." His friend guffaws. When the flickmaster sits back, I haul off and give him a decent slap upside the head, knocking his noggin into his friends. They both turn and half jump out of their seats.
It's
And
just not
pause when they
Feels
see
Day, I
I
guess.
am 6-2,
Poor little ball.
225 pounds. I stood up and said, "You got a problem with that, shitheads." They looked at each other and then turned to sit back down. I said, "You sit there, and I'm gonna make you as miserable as you've been making those guys in front of you." They shuffled on out of the theater. The younger kids all turned and said, "Thank you, sir." TL. DR. Bitch slapped some teen bullies, became action hero. When people are rude to me at my fast food job, I practically overflow their cup with ice. I'm a little passive aggressive. Abstract. Woman and daughter taking crap behind my back in another language that I happen to speak. I used to work for a major bank, and while doing my stint there I came across a ton of buttholes. I was taking a deposit for a lady and her daughter and I heard them speaking a Middle Eastern language. At first I wasn't paying attention, but when I realized they were speaking Farsi, I was all ears. Reason.
This
I speak
toolkit is
Farsi.
hacking. Oh my
They were
god.
talking about how much
Hate
of
this
a
thing.
loser I was. How this job as a teller was the only thing I had in my life. That I probably didn't have a girlfriend and didn't attend school. Throughout this conversation I spoke only English to her, and every time she responded to my requests she would smile and then say something nasty about me in Farsi. At the end of the conversation, I switched up the language and said, "Just because I work at a bank doesn't give you the right to say things about me behind my back. I'm in grad school to become a psychotherapist and this job is for spending money. This isn't how Persian people behave and you should be ashamed. Is there anything else I can help you with?" Her daughter Snap left the building and her mother was beet red, embarrassed, apologized profusely, and left. I never saw either of them again. And here I thought they were going to take a crap somewhere. Trashy. Jerry Springer guest looking young lady at Toys R Us on Black Friday tried to cut in the massive 90-minute line and threw a fit when she was told to go to the end of the line. She yelled at the employees and threw her products into the face of the security guards as she was told to leave. I started a slow clap, to which he replied, shrieking, "Frick y'all." I love that the slow clap was all you had to do in this situation to make her day worse. Brilliant. I was working as a shift leader in a Dunkin' Donuts, spent 2 years in that hellhole, and dealt with my fair share of rude buttholes. One particularly memorable day, a group of ladies came in during our busiest hour, just past noon. The line was almost out the door and we were short-staffed, so it was pretty hectic. While they were ordering, one of them asked for a job application and started filling it out on the counter. She handed it back before they were done ordering and I stashed it on a shelf under the register and started making their food. They had a huge order and we did our best to get it out quickly, but it was obvious from the looks on their faces that we just weren't quick enough for their liking. They sat down to eat their food, and the girl who just turned in her application got back in line. I spotted her right away. She was standing with a glaring face, crossing her arms and tapping her foot, trying her best to look obviously, almost cartoonishly, off. So I motioned for her to come up to the counter, since I knew she had a complaint and I wanted to get it fixed right away. I assumed that in the shuffle we had messed up her sandwich or something like that. Anyone who's worked in fast food knows that these things happen when it's chaotic. I asked her what was wrong, and she pointed to her bottled Mountain Dew and barked, "Definitely not an indoor voice. This is flat." It was a bit accusing, as though it were my fault that the bottle of soda she just opened was flat. So I took it and told her to get another one out of the cooler, then check it to make sure it was good. After all that, she asked for a refund. I said, as politely as I could. "Mom, I replaced your soda. Sorry if there was an inconvenience, but I don't think a refund should be necessary." Something like that. I don't remember my exact words. So she stormed off back to her table and started complaining loudly to her group about not getting a refund. So, since I was having an awful day anyway and really could not see a be like this ever working for us, I grabbed her application from the register, walked it over to the lobby trash can nearest to her table, crumpled it up and threw it away as she watched. The look on her face was freaking priceless. TLDR. Lady comes in to order food and fill out a job application. Is a total B. I throw the application in the trash while she watches. My wife and I were on the receiving end of someone's justice. We'd gone out to a local sports bar restaurant for dinner on a Saturday night. Unfortunately, the local football team had just started playing and the place was packed. While we were waiting in line, we heard a conversation between the folks in front of us with the hostess. Hostess, how many? Guest, 8. Hostess, alright, we have you down. We're not quoting wait times right now as the game has just started and we have no idea how long many of the diners will be staying. Guest, so you're telling me you won't seat us? It went back and forth for a few minutes with the guest getting more and more indignant and the hostess trying to explain that they'd seat them as soon as possible. They just didn't know when that would be. And with a large party, the limited number of big top tables would make it worse. And the group was unwilling to split up into 2 groups. The guest finally moves and it's our turn. We say there's just the 2 of us and the hostess starts in on the "we can't quote times." My wife say, "Don't worry, we heard what you said to the last person. We're not in any hurry and we know how busy you are right now." We get our blinky alert box and find a spot to wait. We're expecting a solid 45 minutes. Literally 2 minutes later our box starts buzzing. We'd been bumped to the front and were being seated. The best part is that when we got to our table there was another empty table right next to it. The 2 tables could have sat the group of 8 but the hostess and waitresses made sure to not seat them. Oh, and the wings were delicious. The wings were delicious because they were seasoned with sweet vengeance. Some douchebag in a Humvee decided to park at a handicap spot at a Kroger. I was young at the time and out riding with my dad, a repo man, in a repo truck. He towed the Humvee to a parking spot on the opposite side of the parking lot. We waited till the owner came out and looked around in disbelief. She thought someone stole her car. My dad drove up to her, rolled down the window and said, "Are you okay?" Miss Woman said, "My car was stolen." My dad replied, "Well, maybe you shouldn't have parked it in a handicap spot," and drove off. I am a caretaker for someone in a wheelchair. As someone who really needs those spaces, I really appreciate it when people realize how shattish it is for healthy people to take them. So thank you. I work in a university computer lab. In all of the lab rooms we have it clearly posted no food, no drinks. I've repeatedly told a particular group that is in the journalism program to at least clean up their mess in the lab room designated for their class only. They never do and I end up cleaning the mess. The other night I go to lock up that particular lab room and they have left a mess and Fox News running on the TV in there. Just went ahead and put a channel lock with passcode on it the night before election day. Being a cop in a small town, I would get a few large parties, 150 plus kids, with a lot of kids coming from outlying areas. I am generally pretty nice to the young adults who live in the area I police, and am generally well liked. But to the kids who come from different towns to party, well, they obviously don't know like me. Anyhow, this one party, I pull up and start walking around, turning a little bit of a blind eye to the underage drinking. I talk to the homeowner's son, parents away, and just ask him to try and get rid of some people, and move the party indoors and close the windows, as there have been too many neighbor complaints. He says he'll do what he can do, all nice and cordial. Anyhow, this one punk standing there with a lucky beer in his hand, starts mouthing me off and bragging to his buddies. Just average crap like "Hey pig, eat any donuts yet?" and just generally swearing and saying how I can't do crap about what he's saying, and that I can't arrest him for dip as he's on private property. Dip equals drunk in public place. I don't give him any satisfaction of acknowledgement. I have a thick skin, else I wouldn't be a cop. But I had other calls to attend to, so left. No further complaints from the party, as the homeowner asked many people to leave. A few hours later I'm driving back to the office, donut free, and pull over a car for doing 15 km/h over the limit on the highway. Usually I give cars at least 20 km/h on the highway before pulling them over, as well. That's what I normally do on the highway. Wouldn't be right to give people tickets for something I do all the time. Well, it's the dipshit driving who'd been mouthing me off. Amazing how nice he was to me at this point in time. Complete attitude change. I didn't let him know that I remembered him from the party, and I now had his name and vehicle plate so I could always look out for him in the future. Long story short, he got tickets for speeding, only having one active headlight, failure to display an N sign. New driver law here. N on rear of vehicle lets other drivers know this person just got his license. Having more than one non-family member passenger. Another new driver law, and not wearing a seatbelt. As I remembered him drinking, I also demanded a roadside breathalyzer test. He wasn't drunk but had some alcohol in his system, so I also give him a 24-hour roadside prohibition from driving, and towed his vehicle. I slept well that night. Also, 3 months later after running his license on our system, the insurance company had prohibited him from driving for 3 months. A few years back, after having gone shopping, I was queued in traffic waiting to get out of the car park. A few cars ahead of us there was this crappy old bomb of a car with 4 teenagers in it. Fairly douchy looking dudes, shirts off, board shorts and sunglasses on. We were nowhere near a beach. Anyway, these 4 teenagers had a megaphone with them in their car and thought that it would be hilarious to shout out profanities at other cars and people in the car park area while we all waited to leave. This center employee drives by in one of those tractors with a trailer attached for transporting shopping carts, and the guys in the car start shouting crap at him through the megaphone. Why don't you get a real job, you fucking loser, and so forth. The employee just put his head down as he drove by with that okay expression on his face. Next, the 4 teenagers decided would be funny to start shouting profanities at some guy in a massive off-road 4x4 with a bull bar on the front. Bad move. I can't remember what they said, but the 4x4 guy wasn't having any of it. He calmly drove his car out of the queue and got about 25 meters distance perpendicular to the teenagers' crappy car. Then he hit the gas and T-bones their crappy car into the wall. He then calmly backs up a little and then takes his turn to exit the car park and goes on his merry way. The employee transporting the shopping carts nearly fell off his tractor with laughter. His laughter was in Ladigo territory. Me and my friends were in line at a coffee place on a boardwalk after a day's surfing when the woman in front of me went freaking crazy and started screaming at the girl making the drink something along the lines of "You freaking ingrate. I'm deathly allergic to milk, you goddamn prick. I want to speak to your freaking manager before I rip you freaking head off." I specifically asked for soy milk. How could I be any more blunt about SOY? You could have freaking killed me. She was told to stop swearing or they would call the police, and she denied her bad language and also stuck to her guns about demanding soy milk. I then stepped in and pointed out the fact she didn't ask for soy and I could prove it. She then proceeded to call me a big man with a small brain and asked me to prove it. I then pointed to my buddy's GoPro I still had mounted on me after messing around on the boardwalk. I had the backpack screen so I could show them exactly what she said. Lo and behold, she was proven so very wrong and hastily steamed away. The girl thanked me and her manager gave us free coffee. By watching their face after telling them may the rest of the day be as pleasant as you are. To manager, he told me to have a day as pleasant as I am. I want him fired. Manager, he was being polite. Customer, no, he wasn't. I'm in butthole. Reported a hit and run today. That's pretty rude, and I'm sure they won't enjoy the call from the police. I used to work a gift shop right in front of a parallel parking only street, so many people hitting the cars around them. All the time. Almost all the time they pretended it didn't happen. So I would wait, go outside, write all the info down and what happened, and leave it under their wiper blades, so they would know exactly what happened if there was even a tiny dent. I work at a bar and for the past several weeks I've been dealing with a regular guy who just hits on me all the time in the most sleaziest way possible, trying to look down my shirt, touching the small of my back. He even called me his girlfriend to a coworker. I've told him countless times that I'm not interested and that I actually found his advances inappropriate and incredibly rude. Of course this doesn't stop him. Advanced to today, I had the day off and decided that it would be fun to visit work and have a few free drinks while watching the election progress. So I brought my boyfriend to the bar and sit down on a stool, and lo and behold, this guy comes up. He ignores my boyfriend and puts his hands on the small of my back again and says, "Hey you, I have a booth if you wanna put your hands to work." He looks at me and grins a sleazy smile. "Oh yeah, I knew you wanted it all along. You got nice hands, baby." I had no idea what he was talking about since I wasn't holding his hand. He then looks at his hands at my lower back and his face goes pale. He isn't holding my hands but my boyfriend's, who snuck his hand to hold his and made this jerk think that I was holding his. My boyfriend then looks at the guy and starts talking in the most feminine voice. "You know it, baby. Now where's this booth?" He then kissed the guy's hand. The guy's face, priceless. He let go of my boyfriend's hand and ran out of the bar. My co-worker was standing there looking at everything and started cracking up. It was the best. "I like your boyfriend's style. So good. Hold his hand for me." Not me, but when I was working at a car dealership, we had a bunch of cars get their wheels stolen one night. A police officer was in writing a report and a lady came in screaming that the cop was blocking her from getting to the service drive-thru. She was screaming at the top of her lungs, creating a huge scene. The cop calmly walks out and moves his car, comes back in and finishes his report. Then he walks back out and drives his car to the end of the street and parks. The lady comes out and gets in her car and leaves. He pulls her over for having her wipers on without her headlights on. Well, this sounds kind of terrible now that I think about it, but I don't think anybody's going to see this anyway, so I might as well. A few months ago, I had driven to my parents' house pretty late in the day. After leaving, I'd noticed a dog had been hit and was lying in the middle of the road. So I parked my car and put on the emergency lights, with my headlights clearly illuminating the dog. I put on a pair of gloves. I'm an EMT. I always have a box of gloves in my car, not only because it's always a good idea to have a pair just in case, but because I often do this with animals that have been hit, out of respect, so I could move it to the side of the road, where it wouldn't be hit anymore. When I finally made it up to the dog, it had lifted its head, and was breathing normally. Turns out, the car had only hit and broken the dog's back legs. The dog was fully responsive and didn't seem to have lost a lot of blood. Thinking this meant that the dog had a chance of living, I went to spread out a couple plastic bags in the backseat of my car. As I was doing this, I noticed a car speeding down the road. I had rushed to the side of the road, directing the car to move to the opposite side, to avoid hitting the obviously visible dog lying in the road. Instead though, the driver ran right over the dog, right in front of me. Now, as an EMT, I've seen some pretty intense things, but I'm always just there for the aftermath. I was pretty freaked out to have watched this dog be brutally run over by a speeding car. I just stood there motionless, staring at the dog's remains. However, I noticed that the car pulled into a house only a couple houses down from my parents. Being blinded by a mixture of rage, shock, and disgust, I decided this dog needed a proper burial. It was about 1 in the morning by this point, so I went into my parents' backyard and grabbed a shovel and a wheelbarrow. I lifted the dog's body. It was still intact. The car was moving so fast it basically just squeezed out its insides into the wheelbarrow and wheeled to the driver's house, where I started to dig a 3-foot deep hole and lowered the dog's body inside and proceeded to bury it. I placed a large stone on top of the hole and left a note on the driver's door. The note said, "Hey, I'm sure you feel pretty bad about killing that dog last night, so I'm sure you won't mind that I buried it in your front yard. It's what you would have wanted." It was about 3 in the morning when I finally finished everything, and I left home feeling nothing but defeat afterward. TLDR, some guy killed a dog that I was trying to save, so I buried it in his front yard. I work for parking services at a decent sized university. I don't write tickets. I just man the front desk, answer questions, and enter permits and changes into our database. We get yelled custard alert, so it's nothing new. But this bee comes in raising heck over some tickets she rightfully got. She was being so ignorant and rude about the whole situation, but I politely look up her account to see if I can find any errors or anything that might help her. She is constantly abusing me the whole time I'm trying to see what I can do for her. Well, look here. These $100 is of tickets you're complaining about not being linked to your account for some reason. I don't tell her this, but I do ask to see her last ticket, so I can check if everything is right. Little does she know, with the info I got from the ticket I transferred all of those tickets she got onto her account. If she would have been nice about the whole thing, she would have probably gotten away without ever having to pay those. Now she has a few $100 worth of tickets. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe you magnificent person. What habits do your parents have that drive you insane? Mom, one of those people that like and share a picture because they think it'll help kids in Africa. Dad, types with one finger so when he uses the computer, you hear a constant tapping for 20 minutes straight. My mom doesn't pay attention to movies, then quizzes people about the plot points she missed. Who is that guy? What's happening now? Where did they get the car? Is the girl still alive? Just watch the movie, Mom. Saying the same thing 10 times in 2 minutes BT slightly changing the sentence structure so they are elaborating. Similarly my parents will just repeat what they are saying in a slightly different way, acting as though they are somehow expanding on the original idea. I love my dad more than anything, but he has this habit of calling me repeatedly just to tell me something important. For example, I'll be at work, notice 9 missed calls from him, freak out, call him back, only for him to tell me that he was talking to someone in Greece on his ham radio. If I call him, he won't answer. Talking to someone in Greece on his ham radio. That's the most dad thing I've ever heard. My mom is losing her hearing, but she's in denial. She cranks all volumes when we're in public, or if I bring her for a walk around the neighborhood. She talks about people their houses at full volume. And, of course, any question gets a first answer of what? Hey mom, did dad go to sleep? What? I said. Audible sigh of frustration from dad's room. Never mind. When they sleep, I'm ninja quiet. When I sleep vacuum. Phone call, loud TV, loud talking, demolishing part of the house, fire sirens going off etc. They micromanage everything. I can't wash dishes with them in the room. Being intentionally technologically ignorant. I don't care if you grew up without computers. Get a goddamn computer so I don't have to fax you every time I want to send you a picture. Then it just gets worse. They get a disease-riddled Asus laptop, and you have to play whack-a-mole with the never-ending extensions that cling onto their browser, while they blame you for the pop-ups. Walking nude around the house. My dad has an extremely short temper that I've picked up. It's like a never-ending circle of irritation. He'll get annoyed over nothing, then I'll get annoyed at him, and then I'll get annoyed at myself for being annoyed so easily etc. They are control freaks. Dad, you aren't even watching the television. Please give me the remote control over my dead body, you son of a bee. My parents would carry out a war of silence that put everyone in the house on edge. I hated it. Read that as war of science. That wouldn't be too bad. Whenever I call them and forget to mention something and attempt to call them back 2 seconds later, yeah, they never fricking answer that second call. Dad says Google that crap all the fricking time. Mom has no idea what to use technology for. She has a smartphone and only recently started texting, which is massively frustrating because she's a renowned scientist working with the Defense Department and is one of the top world leaders in her respective field, and her research team that she leads regularly wins awards. She can use all the cutting-edge technology and computer software she needs, but if I ask her to Google something on her phone, she looks at me like I'm a crazy person. Academics. I went to a talk by a Nobel laureate last year and him and 3 professors spent half an hour trying to get the projector to work until the tech guy showed up and hit one button to make it work. When you're that smart, you don't need to know how the world actually works, only how your experiments work. Whenever my mom's comes to visit, she will look through my drawers, closets, basically everywhere. After she's done looking for whatever the frick she's looking for, she will go to the kitchen, complain about dishes piled up, even if there is only a spoon in the sink, then proceed to doing the dishes, all the while complaining. I'm 29 years old and moved out of my parents' house over 10 years ago. You should have a friend hide in your closet when your mom's coming over. Scare the crap out of her while she's doing her snooping. If it doesn't make her stop, it'll at least be good for a petty laugh. My dad is a channel flipper. Simultaneously watches 2 shows and 2 sporting events at a time, even when we all sit down to just watch one show. My dad does this and it irritates the crap out of me. When a commercial break comes on, he'll go to the other show. Then he won't flip back until they go to commercial by which point we've missed several minutes of the first show. Commercials come, he flips back and we've missed several minutes of that show. It makes it impossible to follow either of them. 2 words, eating noises. My mom went through a phase where she would rub all her teeth after eating with her finger. Like, imagine a less scrubby version of brushing your teeth, but with a finger instead of a toothbrush. She got offended that it made me gag. My father makes a very strange sound every time he eats. It almost sounds like he's loudly slurping soup, but I hear it when he eats anything. I noticed it one day when we were at White Castle together. I took a pickle off of my burger and he asked me if he can have it. After he ate what I already think is a disgusting food accompanied with such a disgusting sound, I decided I can never eat White Castle again, a promise I kept for about 3 years until last night when I suddenly craved it. Dang their marketing. Then one day he was eating yogurt and I noticed he made the same sound. I went and sat down next to him to observe it, perhaps get to the bottom of this anomaly and offer a solution to a problem he didn't know existed. I thought he was taking in excess air every time he took a bite, but that wasn't the case. I quickly had to leave the room fearful I'd never be able to eat yogurt again without thinking of that sound. Now I hear it at every meal with him. Whether he's eating soup, yogurt, an apple, a burger, steak. What the frick is happening? I can't eat in his vicinity. I guess I have to move out now. I'm 25 anyway. It's been a long time coming. My old roommate made the sound that I can only describe as snoring while eating. I couldn't eat around him. It was so gross. My dad has a habit of speaking his mind very loudly in public. I don't know what it is. Senility, or wanting to have his opinion heard. Whatever. We'll be in line at a subway or something and he'll start trying to have a conversation about how many black people there are or how dirty the staff look. My mother brushes her teeth, sticks the toothbrush almost down her throat, chokes herself and starts coughing and spluttering like she's going to vomit everywhere, every single time. Just because no one else has mentioned this, she's brushing her tongue all the way to the back because that's where the bulk bad breath causing bacteria dwell. My mom is always trying to find a way, like, you have to pay for therapy on the 15th of May. She's all like, yes honey, but can't you talk to her so we pay on the 20th of May? No mom, you know we have to pay every 15th day of the month from the start. Why is IT so hard to follow rules? My mom is the worst backseat driver, and a terrible regular driver. Ugh, just thinking about it makes me angry. My dad wakes up every morning and literally rails C until he almost pukes, orders puke, and drinks literally 50 beers any given night. He is trying to get on disability by giving himself diabetes so he doesn't have to work, because he knows he's borderline diabetic. He tried to tell me smoking pot and not believing in God was worse than what he was up to. Haha, yee, good talk. You can't get on disability in America just because you have diabetes. My husband is a type 2 insulin dependent diabetic and works over 40 hours a week. Another guy I know is a type 1 with a pump and has other medical problems as well and still works at the local grocer stocking.
I swear to God, that move better not crush my fucking game.
Sometimes my mum wear my clothes because they are comfortable. 17M here. My dad does this, and when he takes a t-shirt off he grabs it by the throat and stretches the frick out of it. All of his t-shirts are sleeve of wizard, and when I catch him in one of mine I get pee. Both of my parents be about something the other does, when they do the exact same goddamn thing themselves. For instance, my mom always makes fun of my dad for falling asleep on the couch and snoring, and she be non-stop about it. Then, not 10 minutes after her comment she's knocked out cold and snoring louder than him. OMFG, my mom does this exact same thing. She'll snap her fingers or make this annoying, high-pitched whoop noise to wake up my dad. Then, lo and behold, 5 minutes later she's snoring away. She also be about my dad farting or forgetting things. Those both pee me off about my dad too, but her farts are even more disgusting and she doesn't realize she's beginning to forget things as well. Smoking. Everyone in my family smokes except me and I bet I'll be the one to die of cancer. Starting conversations with me only when I'm leaving the room. Or when they call you back from all the way on the main floor just as you're about to sit down in your room on the other side of the house when you were just over there. Twice. My dad has a very successful business and has made enough to send 4 kids to college and is about to build his own house. And he still buys 1-ply toilet paper. It's his burning butthole that drives him to succeed. My dad whistles all the time. Like he'll be running up or down the stairs whistling and all you can do is look in the general direction he's in and wonder what kind of a madman did I derive half my DNA from? Is this how the children of serial killers feel? ETA. He is also an animal thrower. As in if you're asleep and he is assigned to wake you up for something, he grabs one of the family pets and throws it on you. The pet is dropped on you from maybe a foot or 2 above you, so it's fine for the pet in question. When it was the 12-pound cat it was a total dong move. Now that I have a 40-pound dog, fricked up. Dad. Fricked up. My mom always has to be the last person to say something so that the conversation will continue with her in it. For example, if someone, say, me, asks my sister a question, maybe about school, and my sister answers, I'm having issues with a friend, mom will say something immediately afterwards like, oh, she's having problems with a friend. WTF mom, she just said that. That bothers me just thinking about it. Growing old, I want them to stay the same. Oh, I understand you. My parents had me when they were in their 50s and it's hard to watch them getting older every day. They'll wait until they've been driving for about 2 minutes before putting their seatbelts on. We'll literally reach the top of the street before they put it on. When I'm driving I refuse to move until everyone is strapped in. Just put that crap on before you start driving and be safe. I know so many people that do this and it drives me nuts. Now we are moving and they are blindly grabbing, turning around, trying to find the belt. I don't even start the engine until it is on and I was born before there were laws about it. My mom will use the bathroom with the door open and initiate conversation. I'm always like, do you have no shame, woman? My parents both think it's totally cool to walk up and start talking to me through the door while I'm trying to use the toilet. She refuses to let me set the proper aspect ratio on her television. It doesn't matter that the picture is stretched out. She paid a lot of money for that widescreen television, so she should be able to use all of it. And she says the black bars on the sides of the screen are distracting. My mom is very overprotective. One of her rules is that I'm not allowed to stand next to a microwave because it might explode. I have an above the range microwave. I put something in the microwave and while I was waiting for it to cook, I started cleaning the stovetop. The microwave must have built up pressure, because with time left on the timer, the door flew open. It hit me in the head and knocked me to the ground. My dad has his phone on all time. The screen. He walks into my room to say goodnight to me. The screen is visible through his pants. Sometimes we, phone people, forget to put the settings back right when switching over contacts to a new phone. It requires the screen to be on stay awake mode. Edit. Smartphones. My dad always puts bread and tortillas on top of the microwave, then complains when it has mold just a few days after purchasing it. Instead of listening to me, he be that it's Walmart's fault for selling him expired food. No dad, it's because you put a bag of bread over the hot microwave which ends up creating moisture in the bag and that moisture causes fungus to grow. I dunno. I've had a loaf of bread on the microwave since September and there's no mold on it yet. I'm just keeping it now to see how long it takes. Trying to force their worldviews on me. Everyone does it whether they know it or not. When my mom is sending a text, she whispers every word she types. It drives me insane. And yet their entire text is in capitals. My mom believes everything. Told me the other day that drinking water that boiled eggs can cure headaches. Using the guise of spiritualism to justify their complete abandonment of any personal responsibility to the family. But spending time with us is still the most important thing in the world. Whenever my mom uses paper towels to dry her hands, She never throws them away. She leaves them on the counter to air dry and then she'll reuse them to wipe the mirror or mop the floor or something. She insists it's wasteful to just wipe your clean hands dry and throw the towel away. Might as well repurpose it. Which is fine, I guess. But she is always washing her hands and she never wipes stuff up fast enough to use them all up, so we end up with a mountain of used paper towels crowding every sink counter. As a kid I was punished if I threw them away. She'd reuse the towels until they disintegrated. When I moved, she literally gave me 4 plastic bags filled with used paper towels to clean my apartment with. After she visited me last week I was wondering why there was so much trash and I realized it's because she left a trail of bounty in every room she walked through. I opened my linen closet and there was a plastic bag of paper towels smashed into the corner. My parents chew with their mouths open. To make matters worse, my dad has dentures and my mom has a very weird chewing pattern. She always has to sip her tea very loudly as well. My mom also watches CNN most times of the day and talks about how America is going to have a revolution almost daily. Finally, my mom has a weird martyr syndrome going on in which she tries to subtly sabotage herself and then goes to her friends complaining about how life is so hard for her. For example, all us kids are grown and we manage ourselves. The house is an easy house to take care of. My mom hasn't had a paying job in over 30 years and my dad takes care of her. Her only true responsibility is preparing for the Sunday school class she teaches every week. She will stay up to 1 AM watching CNN or Juice TV. Purposely wakes up about 6 AM for no reason in particular, then goes crying to her friends about how tired she always is. One time my dad let her sleep in until 8 AM because of her tired complaining and she started yelling at him for letting her sleep in. If you got to know my mom you would see she is an overall very spoiled woman with few actual problems. She likes to create her own drama at times. To try initiate conversation, my mom asks the most irrelevant and random topics. Yesterday, out of the blue, she asked me what I know of dialysis. Like WTF. I have heard every one of my dad's jokes multiple times, and every time he learns a new one, he calls everyone he knows and tells them the joke. I overhear many of these phone calls. Insane cleanliness. They even have cabinets that they keep their daily cup in. They will drink water, rinse it out, and then hit the glass again. There is nothing out of place anywhere. My dad has gone out with me while I'm having a smoke and pick up a single leaf on the drive. It is like that at my grandparents. My grandma and grandpa have a specific water glass they use. Parents of Reddit, what is something your kid doesn't know you know about them? I'm pretty sure my mum thinks she knows I'm gay, but I'm not, at all. She thinks she knows and that I don't think she thinks that, if that makes any sense. I get it. She thinks you might be gay and also thinks that you have no idea that she thinks you're gay. You know she thinks you're gay and you also know that she thinks that you don't think she knows you're gay. It only makes it better that you're not gay. My mom could always tell when I had to poop. No clue what my giveaways were. I'm 27 about to be 28. And to this day she will be visiting at my house and out of nowhere she's just like you need to poop. And she's always right. Probably a certain facial expression she learned to recognize when you were a baby that you just didn't grow out of. I know when she's trying to get a lie past me. Girl is a carbon copy of myself. All her tricks are my tricks. Her brain works pretty similar to mine. I did most of that stuff when I was her age and spend most my time going I remember trying that one and dear god I sound like my mother. I work with a group of boys. One is 12 years old and is a smart aleck. I know that he currently sucks his thumb when he sleeps. Next time you see him sleep while he suck his finger, pull it out and put one of those big cucumbers in his mouth. That he has a crush on the neighbor girl. Mom, shut up, no I don't. I'm 28 but my dad, if he's buying me clothes for Christmas or a birthday, always gets my size perfectly. I don't keep him updated on my measurements by any means, but he always gets me perfectly fitted clothing and I don't know how he does it. For some reason my dad gets me clothes that are always 1 or 2 sizes too big. I don't grow that fast, Dad. My son is only 4. I know everything because I stay home with him all day every day. I know when he's being sneaky. He thinks I don't realize he's sneaking his toys into bed with him. Not to play with and stay up late, but because he believes his happy toys give him happy dreams. I can tell from how tight his morning hug is whether those dreams were happy or sad. He thinks I don't notice when he sneaks a cucumber from the fridge and hides it under his shirt. Sneaking bites through his collar and giggling as he hides under the table. I'm his mom. And right now I know him better than anyone else in the world, and he has no idea just how much I watch him and imprint all of these adorable characteristics in my memories, because one day he'll be ready to move out and I won't be the one who knows him best anymore. And he has no idea how terrified I am at how fast that day is coming. What he does know is how much I love him and how proud I am of every single new thing he learns and every step towards independence he takes. He knows that mama can always be counted on for a cuddle after a scary dream, or a game of Candyland on a rainy day. Holy frick, I haven't teared up like this in probably a year. I'm a 20-year-old male, why is this making me so emotional? That was moving. I know when he's tired. My wife recently had that conversation with one of our kids. I'm angry and I don't know why. You're tired? No. I know that when he says about a girl she's crazy, it means that he really likes her, even if he'll forever deny it. He's 6. We do that at 27, 36, and 45, too, to be fair. I know he shoots the bed every night. I clean it while he sleeps through it, so I don't know if he knows. Can't wait for him to turn 1. They had his in the first half, not gonna lie, was weirded UOT until the last few words. I am 17 and I think my parents think I am addicted to drugs, when in reality I get 5 hours of sleep at night and spend all my time watching movies and playing video games. I'm pretty sure that it's parent law to think your kids are in drugs when in reality all they do is play video games or something else that probably should be done a little less frequently. My 20 years younger little brother hides my old toy trains under his bed. No idea why he tries to hide them. Also, he likes to listen to BB Blocksberg secretly. Hex. That's adorable. Sadly, he probably thinks people would judge him for girly things like BB. I know she likes other women but thinks since I'm her old fart, 50s, that I won't accept her for that. I'm fine with it, but I am a dad and as such must cast unending date my daughter at risk of life dad jokes. I'm sure someday she will tell me in some dramatic private talk with tears and I will just snort and say, yay girl, knew that since you was 10, and then crack a very inappropriate joke about her girlfriend, because I'm still dad. Hi dad, I am gay. Hi gay, I am dad. I love reading threads like these. Reminds me of all the cringy stuff I did as a teenager, and deep down inside, I know my parents know. My mom knew when I thought I was being sneaky smoking weed. Trick is to let them get away with stuff like that so they don't get away with big stuff. I know when he poops his pants and tells me he didn't. This hit home, because my dad has dementia and this really isn't a conversation I was expecting to be having. But I guess turnabout is fair play. That he secretly wants to be a furry. I don't really know what that entails, but from what people have told me it doesn't seem to be a positive thing. My son has had a thing for stuffed animals, plushies, blankets since he was like 2. It might not be a fetish thing. I also had a lot of stuffed animals when I was around 12-13 and still own them, but don't buy them. I know for a fact that I'm not attracted to furries, though. I'm 17. I'm pretty sure my parents know a lot about me that I might not even know myself. At that age, my mom knew I had a crush on someone. I wasn't yet fully aware of what my feelings were. Her PSN profile is linked to her email, which is part of my Gmail account, so I see not only her emails, but all the weird crap she tries on Fortnite, mostly purchases for $0. She's 10. I may keep it like this until she's 40. I hope you don't and she notice ASAP the importance of privacy. She's 2Y5M. I learned her fake cry immediately, haha. She's what? Okay, I am actually the kid in this area, but I'm pretty sure my mom knows who I am crushing on. I don't know whether I should be scared or relieved. One of my 2 angels named one of their devices Titty and then connected it to our home Wi-Fi. I blocked access. Now I wait for the little crap to come to me. I know why you take such long showers. Dad does too. I know that you actually really like Ryan and probably Helena even though you say girls are gross and you say you hate kisses. I know that you're actually brilliant, despite your learning disability. There ya go. One for each of them. Hey, long showers don't usually mean what I might think they do. I used to take long showers all the time, and my mother called me out on it, thinking I was being nasty, when really I was just relaxing in the warm water. My mum had that she smoked since before I was born until she became comfortable with the fact I smoked baccy and weed. I tried to cover the ciggy stink even at a legal age, but once she found my bong and was cool, I just don't smoke in her presence out of respect and not stinking the house out. I'm the kid in this situation, but my mom can always tell when I am stressed. I don't know how, but she always does it. I am a mom who can always tell when my son is stressed, even when he argues about it. Moms just know. Nice try, mom. Not a parent, but I know that my 10-year-old sister's starting to discover herself. That's the only way I know how to put it. I know this cause I saw the search history on her phone. I haven't said anything to her yet as I just found the search history a couple days ago. And my mom isn't really the kind of mom that will talk to her about it in a way she will understand. I don't really know how to talk to her about it. My parents once thought I was taking drugs when I was younger, 11 or 12, cause I hid some baby broccoli on a napkin under my bed one time, cause I hate broccoli so much, and forgot it was there, till my mum found it many months later. It looked very shriveled up and gross. Never taken a drug in my life, besides medicine obviously. I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty sure my parents know I wank in the shower. Yama knows you wank. Yama wanks sometimes too. Sometimes Yama wanks yada. But what they don't know is sometimes you wank thinking about Yama wanking yada. Frick the above comment. This is the real. Yes officer, this is it right here. Well, I'm 19 and my parents know I do drugs because I showed them my weed and other crap on Christmas Day. That she hides Cheerios behind the couch. I'm on to you, baby. I know he's screwing around right now instead of getting ready for school. Not the parent in this situation, but whenever I take long showers, a good portion of it is spent just laying in the bathroom outside the shower, masturbating. I keep the water running loudly so any little sounds won't be as obvious to anyone nearby. Honestly, even if they're suspicious, the private atmosphere I create in that bathroom is wonderful. The tight spaces I can use to twist my body in whatever way necessary to pleasure myself. The comfort of the towel I'll lay on or the tiny pillow I make with my clothes. The delightful splashing of a good climax upon myself. The solace I take in knowing that all the dirt and fluids which I have amassed will be showered away. And, of course, the sound of the rushing shower water which almost lulls me into a deep slumber. I love the feeling of immersing myself in there and indulging in self-pleasure. I can act primitive. I'd consider myself pretty wholesome when it comes to sources of joy, but those times I spend before showering are blissfully animalistic and free. So, maybe a parent or sibling or whoever thinks, I know he's masturbating, and, if you do, that's okay, because, when I'm in that bathroom, as far as I can tell, nobody knows. Buddy, they do know, they just aren't going to say anything. This is going down in Reddit history as the most wholesome thread ever. My mum knew I was gay before I did. The pictures kinda prove her point though. How to get into their phones. I don't do it, but it's nice to know I can. You freaking terrify me just saying. I'm 20 years old and just because I hang out with guys I'm the only female in the friend group along with me being tomboyish and collecting weapons. My parents, especially my mother, think I'm in a gang fighting people for money. She doesn't know that I have a job so she thinks all my money is coming from nowhere. None of that crap is true. Lol. I have seen my son telling his hamster he loves him on more than one occasion. I don't want to embarrass him and I think it's sweet. My parents thought I was gay for a while after I broke up with my GF at the time and didn't really give a reason to them other than I didn't really want to be with her anymore. Really it's cause she was cray cray and I developed feelings for my best friend who helped me get through some depression and not great thoughts about life and my ex's craziness before I realized it wasn't gonna stop. Took them a year to realize my ex was actually crazy. My mom's exact words were, "I had no idea she was a crazy bee. I just thought you were gay and being an butthole to her." They tried to make us hang out after we broke up so we could be friends, despite my protest. Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure she's gone back to thinking I'm gay thanks to me taking way too long to get over my best friend after the feelings weren't reciprocated and me being in college by the time I fully got over her. I haven't been in a relationship in about 5 years. She's jokingly saying I should marry one of her close friends' kids, who I'm also pretty close with, but all the girls are gay. So basically saying I should date the one gay guy, which is a massive no considering I am incredibly straight, have never felt any attraction to a guy, while having been head over heels in love with a girl on multiple occasions. Parents who regretted having kids, what do you wish you had known before? Let me just ask them. One sec. Amazing first comment. They may not be proud of you, but I am. My mother made it clear to my sister and I that she hadn't wanted us, that I was the product of my dad's unrelenting badgering and that my sister had been an oops. She wasn't a good mom, at all. She screamed about everything. You never knew what would set her off. My parents divorced and we went on to be raised by my stepmom. Not without her faults, but Jesus, and this woman didn't technically want us either. She hadn't chosen to get pregnant with us, but she treated us just like her own. She planned and paid for, with my dad, my wedding. Things got better and my real mom is a good grandma now, but let me tell you, hearing you're not wanted as a child, even in passing, even as a joke, can shape someone's entire life and self-worth. If this is you parents, don't you dare ever say it where they can hear you. Throw away for obvious reasons. I always knew from a young age that I didn't want children. My family is all very strict Catholic Hispanics and basically picked who I was going to marry from a young age. Fortunately, I liked the guy, so we did end up married at 19. I was very honest about not wanting kids. He was okay with that. Our families were not. I ended up pregnant even though I was taking birth control. More on that in a minute. Didn't notice the missed periods because the type of birth control I took let you skip periods. By the time I knew I was pregnant, I was 5 months along, which is too late for an abortion. Had the baby. Found out while in the hospital I ended up pregnant because our families ordered fake birth control online and replaced my pills with the fakes. Needless to say, my husband and I were P. I also had horrific postpartum depression but did the best I could. My husband took up drinking heavily to deal with the stress, and over day he just never came home. Haven't heard from him since. The baby was still an infant at that point, 4 months, and I made the decision to put her up for adoption and move away. Everyone says it's different when it's your own kid. Everyone says the first time you hold your baby you have an instant bond. Everyone says it's the most amazing, important thing a woman will ever do. None of that was true for me. I'm in my mid-30s now and my daughter and her family made contact with me about 7 years ago. We talk regularly and I go visit for her birthday and some holidays. She knows the whole story, and while I'm sure she doesn't really understand, she's only 13, she at least gets it a little. If you know you don't want children, and have never wanted children, don't listen to people who tell you that you're wrong and will change your mind. I'm trying to get my tubes tied to make sure it never happens again, but haven't had luck finding a doctor who's willing to, since I'm unmarried and under 40. Filed for divorce years ago, and since nobody could find him it went through the same way it does for a missing person. We really need to stop acting like women don't understand their own bodies and wants. Whoa, I'm P on your behalf, comma. This freaking dilemma destroyed my relationship with what I considered to be the one. She wanted kids, I didn't. I decided to break up with her. It's better than regretting having kids, but the last time I felt genuinely happy was 3 years ago, and that also sucks a lot. Don't have kids when you struggle with mental illness. I upvoted this because my depression is one of the main reasons I choose to not have them. I don't think I can handle the stress while going through non-functioning times, nor would I want them to inherit the gene. That I'd be up at 3:30 AM and then 5 AM every night because he wants to play. My only regret about having kids is that I wasn't mature enough to handle that type of responsibility. When my first came, I was determined that I can handle whatever comes our way. I was wrong. I was selfish and stressed my wife out a lot. I didn't want to spend any time with anyone else besides myself and became an alcoholic. I was really sad all the time and was feeling a lot of negative emotions about my social group, my plans for the future. Everything seemed to be out of reach. My wife and I argued a lot, but always worked things out for the sake that neither of us wanted our
When you trying
children
to play
in a
hard gold.
separated family. When the second one came, I had stopped drinking as much and spent a lot of time working and saving money. I missed a lot of the milestones for both my children.
Huh?
It made me feel like I was alone and I felt like a terrible father and felt a distance growing in my relationship with my wife. At some points I deeply resented the three of them, and I thought about leaving on more than one occasion for various situations we were in. I eventually hit a point where I felt my soul being crushed, and I figured, it's fine. Whatever. I can be miserable as long as they're happy. And I stayed that way for a good 2 years. Gradually I started to bond with my kids again, and just stuck around for them. Then I started bonding with my wife again. Now our family is functioning on all fronts. It took 6 years for me to grow up and become a better father and husband. I regret that it took so long, and feel ashamed of how I screwed up at the beginning. My first doesn't like me as much as my second, and my relationship with my wife is nothing like it was before having kids. I wish I had known how kids not only change your perspective, they also change your future, and the relationships you have with others. If you try to fight it, you will lose in one way or another. Selfishness is a quality which only makes parenting harder than it has to be. Sometimes my husband regretted it. He felt like he lost me in the process, as our baby took up all of my, and his, time and energy. Our baby is now a toddler, and they've bonded. He sees the benefits now, but if you would have asked him a year ago, he would have told you it feels like a life sentence. If anyone out there feels like they aren't wanted in a wholesome way, I'll totally be your addict mom.
Mel's such a fucking
I wish I had known that every time I looked at my son when he was born, it would make me sick because he's a baby born from the I couldn't bond with him at all. Not till he was at least 2, 3 years old. That my crap ex was going to bail and leave me hating myself, and
you make a Tinder.
That sucks. I hope that it doesn't affect your relationship with your child. For anyone now childless and is on the fence about having kids, if you have doubts, having kids is not for you.
Yeah, but you complaining. Exactly. How you gonna say you want to chill but want to chill with somebody? That doesn't work.
But they are a frick ton of work and as exhausting as you could ever imagine. Parenting sucks the life out of you, but it's also amazing and rewarding. You should only have them if you know for certain that you really want them. To add to this, I read this line somewhere. I don't recall where else I'd give credit. Fearing that you'll later regret not having kids is not the same as
what is your definition of chill?
I don't regret having them, but I'm not as great at being a mum as I thought I would
be.
My kids are still
what is your definition of chill? Tell me.
And I do all the lazy bad parenting things I swore I wouldn't do. I think I just wished I had
why can't you chill with the friends you have like around?
That not having to wake up 5 times a night because of your baby is much better
it's
than
2020
without a condom.
I'm kidding.
Uni is much more expensive than a condom. Uni is much more expensive than a condom. Depends on the country TBH. I bought a pack of
one of my
condoms
friends
for
is in
£6
culinary
last
school.
week, and my degree
The other
cost
one
£0.
live across town. I'm not finna catch an hour,
I
but
don't
just
regret
go hang
it,
out with them.
but if
Sure.
I'd known what I know
I'm
now,
not taking an hour
I
to
may
hang out
not
with you.
have done it. I wish I'd known
He
that
tried,
it's never over.
Exactly, tell me
Get
come
through the
over.
hard preschool years, the hard teenage years,
Is he cute?
and then spend the rest of your life being anxious
What are we
and sad and
talking
worried
about?
about
Your
the
guy
choices
friend.
your
I said
grandchildren make
friends.
and whether or not to bail them out this
Plural.
time. It
Is
doesn't
one of
end
them
that way
cute?
for everyone, but it happens and I'd never even
not hooking you
thought
with
about
one.
the possibility.
Just
This is
tell
my
me what you're
parents with me. I mean, Christ,
Tell
I
me what you're
love that they
I'm
love and care
kidding.
for me so much. But holy
telling
crap,
Wesley.
I
Shut
will
up.
never put myself through that
I'm
kind of
snitching.
stress.
Are you
Dear
a
God.
I was joking.
I'm
People that do
snitching.
not regret having kids, but the Stockholm
Got my shit
syndrome is
rainbow,
strong.
and I'm telling
Also,
everybody.
it's socially forbidden to admit you regret having kids. It's like being American and not participating in the Pledge of Allegiance. People immediately think you're a horrible person.
Yeah, my Pokemon is
Ever think
severely
about babies
underleveled.
and children and pregnancy. Last time I was near an infant, I was 5 years old.
Like,
and it
That's
was
why you
my
gotta
baby
grind.
I don't grind in
Other
games.
women don't warn you for crap.
I play the game
Grinding
how
is
it
When
is.
I was pregnant, they
I
would
didn't
just
eat. I didn't eat.
congratulate me and tell me how excited, happy, and
Say
fulfilled
you haven't
I
eaten in
must
months.
be. Parenthood sucks. There's no you anymore.
Oh.
Only mommy or daddy. You have an identity
And my stomach is
crisis because
completely
you
empty,
literally
too. I
lose
don't
yourself
know
in
for a fact.
taking care
If
of
you,
the
like-
child and responsibilities. 3 years later I'm still
About what?
struggling with
Go ahead and say it.
postpartum depression. It's not like how they explain
go ahead and
it
say
on
it.
the
Say it.
internet. Give it time for the hormones to regulate.
Mute yourself.
Number. My father-in-law is like 46 and he knocked up a 29-year-old. She just stopped taking birth control and didn't tell him. She got pregnant again and they aren't married. They have been together for like 5 years. He's so fake happy it hurts. You can see him dying inside every day. The chick he's with is beyond immature and spends money like it's growing on trees. So yeah, having children with the wrong person sucks. Having children with the right person is amazing. I have a son who's 6 now and my wife and I decide one and done. I got snipped to make sure it never happens again. My father-in-law is too scared to get snipped. Lol. For me, I was told so many times that being a parent is so rewarding and fulfilling, but it isn't. Don't get me wrong. I love my kids but my entire life is packed with stress and misery at their antics. They do not respect me and aren't afraid of my attempt at discipline. Striking people is not a catch-all solution. I feel awful saying I regret my kids. They're here and teens now. It's pure selfishness on my part. Now that they're nearly 17 and 15, I find myself super scared about their safety and future and the stress is high.
What's the age gap
I worry about
between
them
you and your
growing.
siblings?
I worry about them dating, going off to college,
20?
living independently,
Like 7
etc.
to like
I just
8
don't
years.
want them to be in danger or get
fuck?
hurt and the worry is weighing heavily on me. Not a parent. Will never be a
Why are you
parent.
so confused?
Here's advice
You
from a
said
seriously unwanted child.
You're 20.
Don't
Other
have
one's
kids if you
7.
want unconditional love.
No, I said
A kid
the other
can't
one's like, I
love you
said
like
it's
an
like
adult
7
can.
years.
A kid can't be
I
your
think.
therapist,
No, it's like 6
spouse
to 7.
replacement,
6 to
or
8.
best friend.
That's
Get
such a
friends
huge
your own
age gap.
I was
Don't
born in
have kids
2000.
because that's
The other one's
just
born
what's
in...
expected of you.
Actually, it's like
You will
5 to
resent
7.
them. They'll
There's
feel
one
it.
5
You'll
years
hate
younger and
them.
one 7 years
They'll
younger.
bail
So
when
like
they
5 to
can
7.
and never look
That
back.
is such a huge age.
Trust me on this. Don't have kids
Because I
until
was
you're
born in
100%
2000.
prepared to
One was
accept
born
a
in,
disabled
like...
kid, an
The other one was
LGBT
born in
kid, a kid that will
05.
date and marry
The other one was
outside
born
of
in
their race,
2008.
and a kid that won't be your
I think
religion.
2008.
If you can't handle any of
Siblings
that,
with like
you aren't
Or
big
mature
age
207.
enough
gaps
for a
freak me
One of
out.
the two.
Kids aren't dogs.
I
They're
don't know why.
individual humans. You can try and beat their individuality out of them if you really want to, but once they can
I
get
feel like
free,
big age
be
gaps are
prepared to
weird.
spend your late adulthood alone, wondering what went wrong.
I
Again,
would feel
trust
so
me on
weird if
this. Everything gets harder
I
once
had an
you have
older
a child.
sibling who's like 30.
Finances, work-life balance, mental
Do
health.
I like
Parenthood
I'm
is
10 years
thankless
older?
and difficult and
You
often
might as well
miserable and
be.
isolating. I'll never have kids because I'm not 100% on board with having kids. I love kids,
What's your age
but
gap
I
then?
recognize that
You're a
parenthood
sibling.
isn't for me. Think hard before you make the choice.
That's
My
not
son is a
any
narcissistic
different from
sociopath.
my age gap with my
I
Yes.
can't change that.
Your
I couldn't
sibling
raise
is
him
6
any differently
6
to
to
prevent
7
it.
years.
You cannot control
One of them,
personality
the other
traits,
one's like 5.
especially if the person does
Not
not
that
want
big
to
of a gap.
change or acknowledge that there is a problem. The amount of hurt and
So
embarrassment
your
I
oldest,
have
your
shouldered
the
to his
one,
manipulative
second
nature
oldest
has
is
broken me as a
5
human.
years.
He is no longer allowed in my
Yo.
home and we
Oh, never mind.
cannot have a relationship.
I thought like
If I
your
understood completely
like
that this
the
could
second
happen,
sister was
I would
like
not have had kids.
the
If you
last
have
sister.
anxiety and or depression, there's a very good chance your child will too. And if you think your depression and anxiety sucks, imagine how helpless and
By the
crappy
time
you feel
I
watching
hit
your
my
child
30s,
suffer.
they're gonna be like in their
Wish someone
20s.
would have said this to me.
They're
I
like
have
early
ADHD
mid-20s.
and Tourette's while
If
my
I would
son
have
has
kids, I would
anxiety
have
and
them
depression.
like
Our kids are fricked from the
all
start.
at like consecutively.
The amount
Because
of
I don't want to like
anxiety they give me
give
every
birth to one
day,
kid and have to
what
do
a
it
failure
like
you will feel
another
like no matter
5
how hard you try.
like few years.
Oh, and also how much I have to drink to
I
make
want
it
the
back
age
to
gap
my
to be at
fun
least a
pre-kid
year,
self. You
like
are
1
the
to 3 years
failure,
apart.
and you don't have to drink. This will
Some
sound
parents
easier
like
said
having
than
kids.
done.
Also,
But
they'll
try
have like
having fun in different ways. Redefine what you think fun is.
But that's mostly
I know
women,
it may
I
be
believe.
hard, but
Yeah,
it will
we
be
can-
worth it. Please,
I just said
people,
what I said.
know
That's
the person
we can
literally
say.
what I
you
just
We
have
can
said.
children
say.
with, especially young
They love
people.
children.
When you are young,
They
you
Not
love
all
get
women
caught
love
when your
children.
boyfriend might have mental
I said,
emotional
no,
problems
I'm not
that their
saying all.
parents did nothing about because they didn't believe
And
in
I
it
said
and
some
wanted their
women
son,
like
the
having kids around. I
boyfriend,
said
to
some.
think of themselves
I
as
said
normal.
some.
Stop trying to
Yes,
stop,
I
stop
get
trying to
that,
mess up
but
what I'm
they
saying.
didn't think years down the line when their son was trying to be normal, and me, 21 years old after one
Hey,
divorce already,
hey,
This
my
nigga a
child
monkey.
stolen from me. I was an emotional wreck.
Hey,
I
you can't
didn't
say
realize
that.
his problems
No, like
because
you
he
should
hid
have
them
seen
well
the
because of
game.
coping with them without help that his parents wouldn't get for him.
That's
I was
way.
too young and messed up to realize my boyfriend's problems and had a
That'd be
child
my
with
me.
him. Now,
I use-
this child is 30 years old and has always had his
Twerk,
problems.
twerk, twerk,
The
twerk,
mental
twerk.
health
Ugly
care system
goggle
in
with
USA
me.
is a
No,
joke.
always
I took her to many psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, therapists, had levels done. And none of it
Oh
helped.
boy, here comes the
Now,
camping.
This
Here we
30 years
go.
old child of mine has an 8-year-old child who has her problems, plus his father's problems.
Kill
My
it,
30
kill
years
it,
old
kill
child
it.
with mental emotional problems wasn't
I could
intelligent
fuck
enough
you.
to realize her
Thank you.
child would be
My
like her
hair.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Now I am stuck with raising her child, who has double the problems. Me and my
I know the
husband
landlord's
are
gonna
How
use
have you been
protect.
streaming?
because
Like,
she's not
2
emotionally
hours.
mentally intelligent enough to raise him. When it came
How
time
long
to
do you
really
plan on
decide
streaming?
about having kids, I had a
Why? You
revelation.
trying to pick
I
my
could more easily live with the regret of not having them than I could for having them. I can
Why not
only
tonight?
imagine what I would be posting here right now if I had caved to the very real peer pressure and had kids. I do wish people with kids, my old friends namely, were not so uncomfortable or awkward with about my choice, but I get that they have to believe
I gotta
I
find
am
which one I
missing
gotta
out.
reset
I
to.
love
Gotta
most
find
of
which
their
one
kids
like
with
has
all my
nothing on
heart,
it.
but love my
Which
peace
one do you
of
want,
mind
Sosa?
even more. I am glad they
I
have
gotta
them.
see. Let me see what.
I
Okay.
don't have kids, and have never
I have
wanted
both of them.
kids.
I want
I
to.
had surgery to make sure of it as soon as I could, and
My
I
God,
have
is this
never
a
felt
mod?
Yeah,
better
do I
about
wanna
a
hold?
decision in my life. My parents, however, are a different
Like,
Just do
story.
it. I
I'm
mean,
My
like,
mental health runs on
like
both
K-pop.
sides of the
I chose the
family,
wrong
and my
one.
dad
I'm
is
dead.
currently falling apart because of his own mental health struggles, but
That's
refuses
because
to
you didn't
seek
end
help.
K-pop.
My mom is one step
I
behind
chose the
him
wrong
and resents
one.
him even
Fuck.
though she
Is
steps
that why you
in.
chose the wrong one?
Often
You know
I
what I'm
have
saying?
heard my
Fuck
mom say the
K-pop.
following about my dad's
I
mom,
hate it.
who had poorly treated
Fuck
That's
schizophrenia
K-pop.
and
that's what I
struggled
see
her
every
whole
time I log
life.
on Twitch.
She had no business having kids,
Someone
so my
dies, like
mom
an
feels
actual
that
rapper
my
dies,
dad
right?
had no business
Mhm.
being born.
They put in the
Yet
comments, this is
mom
what
still
happens when you
had
don't stand
several kids
K-pop.
with
I'm like,
him. Don't
That's
be
fucked
like my
up.
mom. If
I'm
you
like,
marry
okay.
someone who ends up being a different person and having a different family gene pool than what you were led to believe, please,
I thought they were just
pretty
gonna spam
please,
protect an
think
earthquake,
twice
but
about
I guess
having
I was.
kids with that person. I have struggled my whole life with depression and anxiety and didn't have a chance so far as genes on both sides of my family go. I work extremely hard at having a
And I
normal,
need
healthy
to
life, and
paralyze
sometimes
this
I
damn
even succeed.
primate.
But I
Please.
sure wish I didn't have to live like
Go
that.
like a
TL.
That's racist.
If
You
you
can't
think
say that
maybe
to
you
me.
shouldn't procreate with a
Say
certain
what I
person,
want.
you
Let's do
probably
what I
shouldn't.
want to.
From the
You know what's
perspective
funny?
of a kid
When
who
you said
has a maybe
primate,
regretted having kids,
I imagined
if
you're a
you don't
mannequin.
want kids, don't have them.
Why?
Don't let anyone talk
I don't
you
know
into
why,
it.
because
Don't
their
cave
mannequins are
because your
funny.
partner wants kids. Let them
I
go
think-
find
Fire
someone
monkey.
I
else.
think that's
My
what it is.
mom told me when I was a kid that I would
Exactly.
rather
I think
work
so that
70
a
hours
Nova
weeks
Corona
than
ring.
spend a moment home with you kids. I
It's
was
the
hurt, but
Talos.
later on I understood
What
that she
region
hadn't
is?
meant to be rude or a
It's from
terrible
the
person.
Unova League.
She was just
I mean,
being
Unova reason.
honest.
Yeah, there we go,
Because of this
Unova.
and
There we
other
go.
things,
I forgot the name
I
of
have
the
an honest
Oh, thank God.
conversation up front with anyone
I
I
wasted
date.
move. Fuck.
Kids are a
When
very
Jodo
important
can't
discussion,
help.
and waiting until you've spent months
You
or
remind me
years
of Shaolin
together to talk
Showdown.
about it is a waste for everyone involved if it turns out you're not on the same page. It changed me. I'm not who I wanted to be.
I don't know
No
that
one
is,
gets
but
what they want.
Oh my God.
I don't because they need me.
He's gonna kill
They
the
don't
fucking
because I can't
call.
give them everything. But I adore them completely.
The primate.
I don't
Kill it.
regret having
Oh,
my
no.
one and only child, but I wasn't prepared for
I
just
don't-
how
I don't
chauvinistic
wanna
society
live
is
life as a-
towards mothers and women in general.
That
Mom
would
is
be
expected
so
to do
fucking.
everything while dad gets a trophy for changing a diaper. When something
In the
goes
Reddit
wrong,
post,
it's always
they said
mother's
it.
fault and
Something
never
about
the
being a home.
father's. When I went
I have
back
a
to
friend
work
that's only
after my
child. He has a
12-week
pet dog.
maternity leave,
Like people
And
who are
it's
only
just
child
his
I
sister.
could stand
are
to be
bored.
away from my baby. No one
have
asks
no
new
person.
fathers this.
I feel like
Then,
people that
when
are
our
only child,
marriage
they
fell
try
apart, as
super hard
most
to manage.
marriages do,
I feel like
I
some
was a
well, based
horrible
off
mother
of
for
what I know,
eventually wanting
feel
to
like they
date
try
again
to-
and for not putting my child first. My child is first.
Why this
and
nigga got
always
2
will be,
shadow
but I'm
Pokemon?
still
He
an
be
adult
But
fucking
they're like,
snorting
you
crap.
get like
I'm not
probably
only a
everything.
mother. I recently read a Twitter thread written by a stay-at-home dad. His wife has a well-paid job with lots of responsibility. Yet, the kindergarten won't stop calling her about every tiny issue with the kid. No matter how often both
Or
say
they'll
that
end
he
up,
is the
like,
one doing the child
dying
care. Child care equals mom. Set in stone. It's all the little things every day. Tired from a long day? Well, get ready to come home to some kids who want to
scared to
argue
kill
about
this.
every freaking thing. What they loved chicken yesterday, but today frick you for putting on their plate. Who is brushing their teeth first?
Please don't die.
You closed
I'm
the
counting
door
on you
but
to
they
not
wanted
kill
to
it.
close it. You held the door but they wanted to hold it. Everything. Literally everything will become an argument. You and
Chances
your
of things
spouse
working
may
out my
bicker in
favor
one minor way
on the end.
about parenting and that will be a fight. I am so sick of arguing about everything every day. God forbid you have a kid with anxiety too. And when are they faking it
That's
and when
one.
is it real? When do you put your foot down and when do you caress and nurture? Then they get into school and there is a school shooting warning. And you have to act like the world we live
This game
in
was
is
doing
okay.
the most.
Tell them that life isn't so bad. They need to go to school. Then you get some jackbutt that's like, well, if we're my kid I'd slap him. What the frick?
No.
They have no control of their emotions, no control of their thoughts, and no
Name the
control of their
Pokemon.
willpower. Being a parent sucks. Oh, and if they are sick, which parent will need to take off work to be with them? And when they get some random ailment, how will you pay to take care of them? Sorry, a ton on my mind lately. All of this.
His name
I absolutely don't regret
is
having any of my
Elefante.
3 kids, but I wish I would have been more
But we
prepared
call
for
him
the endless
Elephant.
stream of trick shots and questions while preparing dinner every night. Mom, watch this. That's awesome, sweetie. Mom, and this one, look, check it out.
Oh, thank
cool.
God.
Oh yeah, Mom. But this one.
Yes.
Mom, check it out. You're not watching. Look. Dad, look what my Spider-Man toy can do. Looks at son moving Spider-Man's arms for the 612th time today. That's awesome, buddy. Shoot self. I always wonder about this during abortion debates. When the nice clean Christian lady says that people regret their abortions, I immediately wonder how many parents regret not having that abortion. When your child is sick and dying, when they get hurt and mortally wounded, when they suffer tragedies, congenital illness, a million mishaps. These are real concerns that should definitely be considered. I have 2 kids and it's been 30 years and I still worry about everything. And now grandbabies. Studies been done. More than 90% don't regret their abortion but found sense of relief. Semi on topic, but don't have a bunch of kids thinking the older ones will help raise the younger ones. That's not fair to the older kids. They didn't sign up to be a parent, you did. Stealing an older child's actual childhood by making them act the grown-up in your stead should be a crime. I wish I realized my ex-wife was a clinical psychopath before reproducing with her. Details please. How much it end up hate being a father. I love my kids, but I wish I never had them. They are annoying. I don't sleep. I can't enjoy anything without them being there. I miss my alone time. I miss being able to eat a meal without anyone bothering me. I genuinely can't stand my life right now because I have kids. I haven't been happy for a long while. My kids don't make me happy. Seeing them grow gives me no sense of joy or satisfaction. If you're rich, there's always the solution of boarding school. To prepare to add child to your marriage, set an alarm to go off at night every 25 minutes all night long for a month straight, and then see how fast you become monsters to each other. If you're all hunky-dory, continue that experiment for a year or 2 straight, with an alarm going off every hour followed by high-pitched screaming unless the alarm is attended to in the other room for at least 10-20 minutes of that blessed hour of sleep. If you are still a functioning human being and also still married, go ahead, have a kid. It is actual, horrible, awful torture for at least 2 years and I do not know why people have children. Don't do it. I don't regret having kids, but dang are they brutal on every aspect of your life. My 3-year-old is currently at the other end of the couch crying and saying how much he hates me. It's not just the kids either. Your spouse will suddenly accept things they did not before. We would see parents jamming iPods in front of their kids and
I don't know if
we
you
were
ever
just
seen this
baffled.
video, but
Like really lady, you're not even gonna try? We were also very against co-sleeping.
Stop sending your
Too
porn
risky.
to me, I don't like.
I have lost my voice in both of those things, as my wife now allows both to occur. It's very tough. Not me but a close friend of mine from high school. Met a girl not long before I left for college. First relationship for both of them, and not long before them talking about getting married and stuff. The rest of our friend group didn't really like her, not just for the normal "you're stealing our friend" drama balls, but it just didn't seem like the healthiest relationship for how serious it was getting. Some of us tried to warn him. He shrugged us off. Well, eventually she gets pregnant. She decides to keep it. It's triplets. I crap you
Guys like
not.
this kind of stuff.
So this kid is still a teenager.
No.
And he has 3 kids on the way.
Don't worry, say that.
not see
Ended up
the-
getting married.
He said, I want to go
but
back
he
to
went
that
into
time
a sort of
before
downward
with
spiral.
video.
I don't think he
Oh
ever
my
said it
God.
out loud.
Then why did-
There's two
Clearly had
captions.
his
There's two
regrets,
captions.
and
There's
maybe
the
should have
original
put
tweet
the
and
brakes
there's
on
the
that
retweet with the
relationship.
comment.
Good news is they're no longer married. The kids and ex seem to be okay. She got remarried,
Depends
and
on
he's
the
in a
person.
better place now.
Yes.
Use me as
Okay,
the delete
like,
button.
Mentally, I guess the moral of the story is don't stick your dong in crazy, especially if you're not even old enough to vote, and always use protection. Because
Watch
honestly,
me do it.
I have
Watch me
my
do it anyway.
suspicions
What does
that
that
he used
mean?
some sort of fertility
What does that
drug
mean?
behind his back.
Don't stick your
like triplets. Dang.
dick in crazy.
This story just screams.
Don't put
I
your
live in
someone
a
does
small
crazy.
town. As a father of
There's a
2,
possibility you're
I
gonna
can
get them
only
pregnant,
cringe
and
and
then
dread the idea of raising
got them pregnant.
triplets. That
gotta
crap
deal
has
with
to be
them.
freaking exhausting.
That's why you don't do that.
That
It's
with a
crazy.
little confidence and a lot of cardio, I
Okay.
wouldn't have had to settle for my ex. You don't have to be in any relationship you don't want to be in, no matter what you look like. 1. Know that they're freaking expensive to care for and raise. Daycare costs more than college tuition yearly. Average is over $15,000 a year. If you don't have family near you that can help out, you are fricked. I can't afford another child and I do not have the mental capacity to handle another one. No thanks. 2. Frick your free time. You don't have that anymore. Time to clean? Nope. Time to take a crap or use the bathroom uninterrupted? Nope. Free time will ease up after a few years. 3. Your current life of relatively
Bro,
being
this thing
stress-free
just
and
stood here.
carefree is
Watch
over.
this might
Good
happen.
luck. 4. Kiss whatever
I'm
is
out.
left of
Hold
your
on.
private life goodbye.
Entertain.
5. For better or worse, kids will change you.
She was a
Prepare
teacher.
for that. You know that feeling when you get done with work and you are heading home and you're finally going to put your feet up and relax. Some days that is what it will feel like when you leave for work in the morning.